The recording? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I've started the recording. Hey, everybody, we are live and in stereo. Yes. So today we're going to cover salt analysis questions, all your question number threes, and hopefully after today you'll be able to solve every single question number three. Sir, आप A level पढ़ा रहे हैं अगले साल? Yes, inshallah. Hopefully from September or August I'll start teaching A levels, or maybe even from July. But I'm waiting till August or September so that you know how teachers teach in the market, and then you could see how we teach in the market, and then you could differentiate between the two. A lot of a lot of people are just taking advantage of the fact that there are not enough good teachers in the market, so students have no choice but to go to them for studies. But hopefully we'll change that, and we'll make sure to create and to prepare scientists for the future to come, huh? We need to create more and more, or prepare more and more scientists, because the more scientists we have, the more chances of creating a positive impact, the more closer we get to creating a positive impact in the society. And that's seriously all we aim for as an academy. We aim to deliver conceptual understanding to students, and obviously hope to also ignite interest in our particular subject, so that students go on to become great entrepreneurs, great scientists, and whatnot. Yeah. तो इंशाल्लाह शुरू करवाते हैं सर, प्लीज जल्दी शुरू करवा ले, वी नो यूर द बेस्ट. Okay, but before we start off officially solving questions, I want to clarify a few things. So today we're going to do question number 3, which is salt analysis. Tomorrow we're going to look into maybe the question number 4, which is preparation of salts and different type of experiments that could come, experimental designs and whatnot. So tomorrow we're going to look into question number 4, and day after tomorrow we're going to look into titration, and then maybe on Monday we'll look into rate of reaction, and then later on Tuesday we'll look into our beautiful naming and precautions, and we'll be done with our entire ATP. Right now, this entire ATP is very, very easy to work your way around it. Right, so ATP paper, if I talk about question number 3, which is salt analysis, or you could say identification of ions, you'll realize, or maybe even guesses, you'll realize that the examiner already gives you this beauty at the end of the paper. So when you go towards the end of your paper, you'll have these qualitative analysis. You're going to have these, all the tests and all the results, right? But does that mean that you shouldn't know these things by heart? Well, what I always recommend is to forever know them by heart, and to much extent. And if you know them by heart to much extent, you'll be able to quickly answer the questions, and you'll be able to quickly find out where things are, even if you sometimes forget about it. Right? Yes, it also comes in theory paper at times as well as MCQs, but it's still important to know them to some extent. If you don't like remembering them, it's okay, but you should know them to some extent. Now, I'll give you a general idea of how all of these tests should be in your brain, especially when it comes to the cations, right? So the general idea is, although the examiner gives you all the tests, he gives you all the ions in your course and all the tests in your course, and even the effects and whatnot. But I want you guys to know the general idea. You don't need to memorize them, but you should be able to easily navigate your way. And to easily, yes, this can come in paper 1, and to easily navigate your way around these questions, you must be able to have to much extent, you must have to maybe learn them to some extent. ठीक है जी? तो खैर, let's talk about these before we solve any questions from our booklet. And I've at the end I've created some difficult questions on my own. I work like 30-40 minutes on these questions. I'll show them to you, and we'll do them towards the end so that I can check out how that's the masterclass mega questions. So we'll do them towards the end to check out how much you've improved. These are difficult questions that I've created, so even if you're not able to do it, don't worry, much of it may not come, but if it comes, you'll be well prepared. Done, sir. Acha ji. Now, if you look at tests for cations are positive ions, right? And remember, these are given to you at the end of your paper. So cations are positive ions, and he's given you the cations in your course, and he's given you the effect with sodium hydroxide and effect with aqueous ammonia, right? But I want you to categorize them in a particular way. And what way do I want you to categorize them in? I'll show you right now. So the way I want you to categorize them is that, I want you guys to first write the aluminum 3 plus ion, the zinc 2 plus ion, and the calcium 2 plus ion. And the reason why I'm making you guys write these three ions before, he's given it to you in the table, here's the aluminum 3 plus ion, here's the zinc 2 plus ion, and here's the calcium 2 plus ion. He's given to you in the table, but the problem with this is that it's scattered in the table, right? If you consolidate this in your brain and say, hey, these are the three ions which are not transition metallized. Remember, zinc is not a transition metal ion, and you'll learn more about that in A2 chemistry, right? But these are not transition metal ions. And we know that transition metal ions, if they form compounds, they're going to be white solids. Remember, transition metal, if they are not transition metal ions and then they form compounds, they're going to be white solids. Transition metal ions, when they form compound, usually they give you what? They give you colored compounds, right? So other than transition metal ions, all the compounds that you're going to get is going to be a white solid. And you'll realize that if you add sodium hydroxide aqueous, a few drops of sodium hydroxide, this is going to give you a white precipitate, that's going to give you a white precipitate, and that's going to give you a white precipitate. A precipitate literally just means a solid, right? Then if I add excess sodium hydroxide, what happens is that this calcium 2 plus, this becomes insoluble, or this remains insoluble. What this means is, what does the word insoluble mean? The word insoluble means that the white precipitate remains. The white precipitate does not dissolve. But with these two guys, if you add excess sodium hydroxide, the white precipitate dissolves to give you a colorless solution. And that's why we say it's soluble. Remember, when these white precipitates dissolve, they give you a colorless solutions. And that's why we say that these beauties are soluble. So if you add excess sodium hydroxide, these two are soluble, and that's insoluble. And he has given this to you. Please remember, look at this. White precipitate, soluble in excess, giving a colorless solution. So he's given this to you, but I want you to just consolidate this in your brain to be able to quickly answer questions, right? And then with aqueous ammonia, you realize that the calcium 2 plus ion, it gives you a either you could say it gives you no precipitate, or a slightly white precipitate, a slightly small piece, a small piece of white ppt. But these two, with a few drops of aqueous ammonia, these are going to give you white ppt again and white ppt again. And then the question is, how do you differentiate between the aluminum ion and the zinc 2 plus ion? You differentiate between them by adding excess ammonia. And the way I tell my students to remember them is, you don't need to remember them anymore, but the way I tell my students to remember them is that zinc 2 plus is a very, very good person, right? He's a Muslim, yeah. He's a very good person. So it's white soluble, and it's white, and it's still soluble. The same test results that it gives you with sodium hydroxide is the same that it gives you with ammonia, aqueous ammonia. And aqueous ammonia is also written as ammonium hydroxide, right? Please remember, if the examiner says ammonium hydroxide is added, that also means aqueous ammonia. Why does it mean aqueous ammonia? Because when you take ammonia gas and you bubble it through water, what happens is it gives you what? It gives you NH4OH aqueous, right? So aqueous ammonia, literally ammonia gas, when it becomes aqueous ammonia, you could say it's ammonium hydroxide, or you could even say that it's ammonia aqueous, like this, yeah? Now, you need to understand that zinc 2 plus, it's white soluble, white soluble. It remains the same throughout. But if you look at aluminum 3 plus, it's white soluble, white, and then here it becomes insoluble. So that's the difference. That's the difference, and that's how you could identify whether a zinc ion is present or whether an aluminum ion is present by checking it with excess ammonia, excess aqueous ammonia, right? That's how I want you to consolidate this in your brain. If you look at the aluminum 3 plus ion, the zinc 2 plus ion, the calcium 2 plus ion, it's going to give you a white solid, right? It's going to be giving you white solids. Why does it give you white solids or white precipitates? Because they are not transition metal ions. Ions which form compounds and are not transition metal ions, they will give you white solids. But other than transition, but if you have transition metal ions, then they give you colored compounds, right? And if white solid dissolves, they give you colorless solutions, right? So if white solid dissolves, it's going to give you soluble. Means, remember, you're not going to write soluble in the observation. Observation is what you see with your naked eyes. So what do I see with my naked eyes? With my naked eyes, I see that this white precipitate dissolves to give me a colorless solution. Please don't write soluble as the observation. Even if it's written in the marking scheme, that's written for the teacher, not for the students. So you need to say, hey, it's soluble. That's how you remember it. But soluble means what? What will the observation be? The observation is going to be that the white solid dissolves to give you a colorless solution. Zinc is not a transition metal. Whoever teacher has taught you that is wrong. In A2, you learn this, but all the D block elements, transition metals belong to the D block elements, but not all D block elements are transition elements, right? Or transition metals. Please remember this. So they're going to give you white solids and colorless solutions. Now, then let's categorize these three. The chromium 3 plus ion, the copper 2 plus ion, the iron 2 plus ion, and the iron 3 plus ion. So the way I like to categorize them, I say, hey, you have iron 2 plus, you have iron 3 plus, you have chromium 3 plus, or I just categorize these two. बाकी चलो इसको ऐसे करते हैं. You have chromium 3 plus, you have copper 2 plus, right? These are the 4 ions that we have, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, sir. So the way you could, the way you could remember them is through a practical investigation or a practical observation. If I add sodium hydroxide, a few drops of sodium hydroxide, you'll realize that because now these are transition metal ions, they're going to give you colored compounds, right? And Fe2 plus, when you add sodium hydroxide, a few drops of sodium hydroxide, it gives you a green precipitate. It gives you a green precipitate. Yeah, you're not going to write PPT in your paper. You're going to write the complete term precipitate. And where have we seen this? Do we know where have we seen this? Yes, my students are writing here in the chat box. We've seen this through the practical, observation when we eat apples. When you eat apple, you'll realize sometimes you may say, hey, it's white, but it's not white. If you look carefully towards it, it's a tinge of green precipitate. It's a tinge of, it's a very green, a very light green precipitate that you see with when you bite an apple, right? And that's basically because it has the iron 2 plus ions, right? It has the iron 2 plus ion. That's why it gives you that green precipitate. That's why doctors say an apple a day keeps a doctor away, keeps the doctor away. No, obviously, doctors don't say that, but an apple a day keeps a doctor away, and they say it has iron in it. Those of you who are iron deficient eat more apples. And that's why I know that iron 2 plus is green precipitate. If you bite it, you'll realize that green tinge that form is because of the iron 2 plus. But if you leave the apple for some time, for some time, what does it become? It becomes red brown. It becomes red brown. And that is the reason why it becomes red brown. It's because Fe3 plus forms. What happens is that the iron 2 plus ion, if you leave it for a while with oxygen in the air and so many, with oxygen in the air, it gets oxidized to iron 3 plus by losing an electron. And this iron 3 plus, in fact, is red brown. Yeah, it gives you that red brown color effectively, which is used in rust. So the apple actually rusts, right? So that's how you could remember these things. And then chromium 3 plus is exactly like the iron 2 plus ion. It's a green precipitate. And then copper 2 plus is a light blue precipitate. Remember, these are all transition metal ions. That's why they're giving me colors. We need to know this so to be able to quickly answer questions and to be able to wrap our heads across the questions, right? And then if I add excess sodium hydroxide, what you'll realize that this will be insoluble, that'll be insoluble, that'll be insoluble. But the munafiq here, the anomaly here, the guy who changes color, the guy who's a chameleon is your chromium 3 plus ion. Out of these three, the chromium 3 plus ion is the one who's a chameleon. And how do we know he's a chameleon? Because that, my beauty right here, that's soluble. And soluble, he's a hypocrite, right? So that soluble, what does insoluble and soluble mean? Please, this is just a way to remember them. But the observation is not insoluble, soluble. The observation is that if I am saying that the green precipitate is insoluble, the observation is that the green precipitate remains. The red-brown precipitate remains. The light blue precipitate remains. But here, when I'm saying it's soluble, that means that the green precipitate will dissolve. And when a green solid dissolves, what solution does it give you? It gives you a green solution. So when a green precipitate dissolves, it gives you a green solution, right? And then if I add a few drops of aqueous ammonia, the same thing is replicated, right? So you have a green precipitate here, a red-brown precipitate here, a green precipitate here, and a light blue precipitate here. The same thing right here. The same thing with a few drops of sodium hydroxide is repeated right here. But now, towards the right, there are two traitors. There are two traitors. Again, the chromium 3 plus is the traitor and the copper 2 plus is the traitor. So there are two traitors right here. The copper 2 plus is the traitor, right? Now, why am I calling them traitors? Because what you'll realize is even if I show it to you, this chromium 3 plus, here it was soluble, but now it'll change its face. Now it'll become insoluble right here, which means that the green precipitate will remain. And when I talked about the copper 2 plus ion, when I talked about the copper 2 plus ion, I'll realize that the light blue precipitate, I'll show you it to even, I'll show it to you here even, that the light blue precipitate dissolves. When I'm saying it's soluble in excess, this means what? This means that the light blue precipitate dissolves to give you a dark blue solution. And so I'm going to write here the light blue PPT dissolves, you know, dissolves to give you a, so it's soluble, right? To give a dark blue solution. And that's it. That's how it should be in your brains. Dark blue solution. Bunsen. Now, ammonium ion is also very beautiful. And the way I like to categorize the ammonium ion, I like to categorize it with the nitrate ions. Remember, when I talk about the ammonium ion, I'm going to say, hey, I add sodium hydroxide to this and I warm it, right? And I add sodium hydroxide to this and I warm it. But the only difference between the ammonium ion and the nitrate ion is that with nitrate ion, you also add the aluminum foil. Why? That's not in your course, right? Why? It's not in your course. But what you'll realize is in both cases, the gas that's being produced is ammonia. And this ammonia gas, how do you confirm for the ammonium ion or the nitrate ion? You basically test for ammonia gas. And how do you test for it? You test it with a damp red litmus. And it's all of this is given in your paper. You test it with a damp red litmus and it turns the damp red litmus paper blue, right? So you test it with a damp red litmus and it turns it blue. That's the test and that's the observation. And I'll also tell you a couple of more things that you should know, right? So these are a few things. Now, a couple of more things that you should know is for the iron 2 plus ion. Remember, in excess sodium hydroxide or in excess ammonia, this iron 2 plus ion, if you've added excess sodium hydroxide and if you've added excess ammonia, what probably sometimes happens is that because you've added so much sodium hydroxide and because you've added so much aqueous ammonia, sometimes this iron 2 plus ion, even by adding excess this and excess this, because you're adding so much of this, sometimes it oxidizes. This iron 2 plus oxidizes to iron 3 plus. So in excess ammonia or in excess sodium hydroxide, this further oxidizes, just like apple, apple, that's a green apple and it goes into a red brown color right here. So this further also sometimes oxidizes, and that's why we say that it turns brown near the surface on standing. The surface on standing. What does this mean? If you bite an apple, you could easily visualize this by just looking at an apple. So if you bite an apple, that's a green tinge to it. That's iron 2 plus. But if you leave it for a while, you can literally do that. You leave the apple for a while and you'd realize that it starts to turn brown near the surface on standing, right? It starts to turn brown near the surface on standing. Done. And this is when you have excess sodium hydroxide or excess ammonia. And you could see this here. It says, hey, the precipitate turns brown near the surface on standing. The precipitate turns brown near the surface on standing, when obviously it's in excess, right? Now, this is how you need to visualize them. These three white PPTs, soluble means gives you colorless solutions. These three colored PPTs, these four colored PPTs, and gives you, the same thing. It's not soluble. And this, when I'm saying, hey, this is soluble, this means that it dissolves to give you a green. Standing literally means skins. Standing literally means that, you wait a while. You wait a while and you'll realize that it turns brown near the surface. On standing means आप उसको थोड़ा सा इंतजार कर रहे हैं, right? For your level, that's more than enough. अच्छा, one more thing that you guys need to know is the logic behind the ammonium ion. Please realize the logic behind the ammonium ion. My question to you guys is, what if I add aqueous ammonia and warm it? What if I add aqueous ammonia and warm it, right? Like sodium ammonium hydroxide. Will it still give me the ammonia gas? Will it give me the ammonia gas? If I add aqueous ammonia for the test of ammonium ion, will it give me the ammonia gas? Absolutely not. Remember, it only gives me the ammonia gas when you add sodium hydroxide to it, or if you add potassium hydroxide to it, if you add a strong base to it. Why? Because you've done the equation for this. The reaction for this. We know that ammonium salts are slightly acidic. And if you take an ammonium salt and you react it with a strong base, what happens? Sodium will take the chloride chloride, it'll form sodium chloride right here. You'll realize that the OH in the base, and the H in the acid is gonna form, H2O. And what's left behind? What's left behind? What's left behind is my NH3 right here. And that's why we say, please realize, you need to remember this because this equation is a part of your course. Ammonium salts reacting with strong bases. So that is the reason, that's how you test for the ammonium ion. Why am I adding? Some students ask, sir, why are we adding sodium hydroxide to it? Why not ammonia? Why not aqueous ammonia? Well, you need to ask yourself, hey, would aqueous ammonia react with ammonium salts? No, they won't, because you know that ammonium salts are slightly acidic and they only react with strong bases, not with weak bases. Ammonia, aqueous ammonia, which is ammonium hydroxide, it's a weak base. So ammonium salts, which are slightly acidic, won't react with weak bases. They react with strong bases. So that's the reason why we use sodium hydroxide. And with aqueous ammonia, it would not give me any results. So with sodium hydroxide, you've done this equation. It gives you sodium chloride, which is the salt. It gives you water, and it gives you ammonia gas. And then when you test for this gas, it further confirms the presence of ammonium ion, right? So you needed to know this. And now let's just start off with our beautiful. Acha, ek aur baat. One more thing, two other things that students confuse: sulfate ions and sulfite ions. These are the two other things that you need to not confuse. Sulfite ions are basically reducing agents. And whenever you have a reducing agent, you literally just react it with a strong oxidizing agent or any oxidizing agent. And the oxidizing agent that is in our course is acidified aqueous potassium manganate, which is what? Which is purple, sir. So this acidified aqueous potassium manganate is purple, and it's gonna go from purple to colorless if the sulfite ion is present, because the sulfite ion will reduce the potassium manganate, right? It's a reducing agent, and that's why it'll lose its color. It'll go from purple to colorless. My question to you guys is, sometimes the examiner says, sir, it goes from purple to light purple. Does this mean that the sulfite ion is present? Does purple from purple to light purple, does this mean that the sulfite ion is present? Absolutely not. Because the reason why it turns light purple is because there's a lot of liquid. There's a lot of colorless liquid, and if you add if you add a few drops of purple to a colorless liquid, it's obviously going to turn light purple, right? But if the sulfite ion is present, then it will not have any purple in it. It will not have any purple in it. It'll just go from purple to colorless, right? So please realize. And for sulfate, you obviously add dilute, you acidify it with dilute nitric acid to remove any contamination, and then obviously you follow it with barium nitrate. And why do we follow it with barium nitrate? It's because the barium 2 plus ion and the nitrate ions, aqueous barium nitrate, is soluble, right? So I can split them into ions, the barium 2 plus ion and the nitrate 1 minus ion, right? And then if you have the nitrate 1 minus ion and the barium 2 plus ion and the sulfate ion comes into contact with it, you know your NACSAG rules. You know that barium sulfate is an insoluble salt, right? All sulfates are soluble except for LMS, castrobar, lead, mercury, silver, castrobar, calcium, strontium, barium. So barium sulfate is insoluble, and that is where you get your white precipitate from. So these are a few things that you need to know. This equation isn't a part of your course. Kya ho gaya abhi? This equation is a part of your course. You can, your teachers must have taught it to you in acid, bases, and salts when they teach reactions to you guys. So please, you need to know equations for salt analysis. And I'll tell you why, because I have made some difficult questions. Done? Ibrahim, that's a good question. Ibrahim is saying, sir, why can't we use calcium or lead nitrate for the sulfate ion? I've explained it in my live classes, because then it sometimes contradicts with something else, but it's not a part of your course, so I won't go into the detail. So that's all you need to know for salt analysis. Please, you need to, and one more thing, whenever it's a hydrated salt, you realize that water will always evaporate, right? On heating, what will happen is, let's suppose I say you have copper sulfate .xH2O, there are some water molecules bonded to it. So if the student performs a test and he says, I heated it, and then at the top I tested it with a cobalt chloride paper, an anhydrous cobalt chloride paper, and the result that I got was basically the cobalt chloride paper went from blue to pink. What does that mean? What does this mean? The cobalt chloride paper going from blue to pink. What does that mean? That means that this solid right here, or this compound right here, had water molecules present in them. So that's a test for the salt being hydrated. That's a test for the solid being hydrated. Please remember that. Done. So this is all you need to know and wrap your brain across, and it's all given to you in the paper. Please realize all of this is given to you in the paper. But these are a few things that you should have command over right off the top of your head. Yeah. Done? Chalo ji, let's start off with the questions. So we are done with looking into this, and now let's go into the questions. So before I solve marathon questions, like the mega questions, I look into a few of these questions that I've prepared, so that you guys, oh, where did we go? Sorry, my bad. So that we have a recap of everything. ठीक है जी? Oh my God. बार बार दिखाऊंगा, टेंशन नहीं लेने का है, बार बार दिखाऊंगा, टेबल साइड बाय साइड बिल्कुल बार बार दिखाऊंगा. आपने पेपर टेबल से ही करना है ना. So just give me a sec. Okay, sir. Okay. Read this question for a moment, and then I'll teach you how to go about the question. Sir, thought process क्या होना चाहिए? सर आज आपके $50 पूरे नहीं हो रहे हैं यार, कोई नहीं, हमने तो आप लोगों के लिए किया, अब हो जाएगा, अल्लाह खैर करेंगे. इन द अपकमिंग डेज, we are 84, 85. In the upcoming days, more and more will join, don't worry, because the papers are going to draw near. तो कोई नहीं, होता रहता है. रीड द क्वेश्चन फॉर अ मोमेंट, एंड मैं जरा पानी पी के आया ना, और करते हैं हम सवाल. किसका है ये तुमको इंतजार में होना. यार somebody send the link. It's past paper. इब्राहिम, past paper उसमें है ना, past paper उसमें है, वो आप भिजवा दें. past paper क्लास में, बल्कि पिन भी हुआ होगा. Oh, the groups are closed. Okay, wait. किसका है ये तुमको, अकलमंद, मुझे इतने मैसेजेस आए हैं, ये देखो, ये देखो, ये हाल है. किसका है ये तुमको इंतजार में होना, देख लो इधर तो एक बार, खामोश क्यों हो. 1 second, yeah, let me just send it. मैं समझता था हम जो हैं, वी वी आर बेसिकली नॉट टेक सेवी, लेकिन आप लोगों की जनरेशन तो हमसे भी बुरा हाल है आप लोगों का है. अच्छा जी, लेट्स सेंड इट, एंड लेट मी आल्सो ओपन द ग्रुप. क्या याद रखेंगे? लेट्स ओपन द ग्रुप. हु क्लोज द ग्रुप्स? शायद सर ने बंद किया ना, आप लोग गप्पे मारते हैं. चलो जी, I've sent the booklet. I've sent the booklet in the group, Khadija. And those of you who may be watching this on YouTube later on, the link to the drive is given in the description. And it's also, if you guys haven't joined the group, it's also present. The link will all the link for this booklet, the masterclass, is also going to be present on Conceptuals Academy page. Yeah. So Conceptuals_Academy. Achha ji. It's time to do questions, right? Please, this should be the thought process behind things. Please, this beauty. ये चीजें आपको off the top of your head आती हो ना, तो फिर बाद में आसान भी है देखना इन चीजों को. My YouTube is at Carboxyl. I'm astonished. Bottom of the head. No, the top of the head. Top of the head. Yeah? मैं पानी पी के आया, अब मैं आपको सिखाऊंगा, जो मैं आपको सिखाऊंगा ना, इंशाल्लाह फिर आप कहेंगे वाह 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 सर, हर सवाल होता है. Just 2 minutes. Yeah? 2 minutes, Sabiha. 2 minutes. Acha ji, it's time to become the kinematics of chemistry. Chalo ji, let's. Sir Suleiman rocked and CIE shocked. Acha, let's start. Okay. Now, the way you need to go about these questions is, hey, he's saying solution E is aqueous chromium bromide. Now, whenever he's given you a solution, or even if he's given you a solid, please, please, please try to dissect them. Isolate the ions. If it's chromium bromide, that means this 3 represents the oxidation number, right? Which is 3 plus. That means you have a chromium 3 plus and the bromide 1 minus ion. And if you look at them isolated, you will be able to figure out all the tests on your own. Because now I know that the chromium 3 plus, what are the tests? Oh, sir ne kaha tha, green precipitate. And even I can look into this page right now. Even if I forget, I could say, hey, it's a green precipitate soluble in excess, which means it dissolves to give you a green solution, and green precipitate insoluble in excess. So all of this should come to my mind. And the test for bromide ion, it's given right here. You add acidified with dilute nitric acid, and then you follow it with silver nitrate right here. The bromide ion, acidified with dilute nitric acid and follow it with silver nitrate. And if the bromide ion is present, it's going to give you a cream precipitate. And what actually really happens is that if I have a bromide ion right here, my God, wait a second. If I have a bromide ion right here, it's aqueous, right? Now, if I have a bromide ion and I add silver nitrate to it, silver ion and the nitrate ion, I know that silver bromide, all silver halides, silver chloride, bromide, iodide, they're all insoluble. So this is going to form a solid, and that's a cream solid which forms. Similarly, and you should know the ionic equations for it even. The silver ion aqueous reacts with the bromide ion aqueous to give you silver bromide, which is effectively that cream precipitate that you get. That's a solid. Yeah. Acha ji. Now, so you should know all of these tests, right? Off the top of my head, I'll say, hey, this is a green precipitate, soluble in excess if I reacted with sodium hydroxide, and if I use aqueous ammonia, it's green precipitate and it's insoluble in excess, which means that the green precipitate remains. This I acidify it with dilute nitric acid. Why? Because I need to remove some contamination, right? Because sometimes carbon dioxide dissolves, तो वो carbonate ion को हटाने के लिए होता है. And then obviously, I follow it with silver nitrate, and a cream precipitate of silver bromide would form right here. AgBr banega, which is a cream precipitate. So this should come in your brains. Now let's talk about these questions. So now it's saying, hey, solution E is divided into two portions. The main thing is to read the question. So if you have solution E and you've divided it into two portions, that means you may perform two tests on it. So is it to the first portion of solution E, the student adds sodium hydroxide drop by drop. Sodium hydroxide. What is this a test for? Sodium hydroxide. What is this a test for? The positive ions or the negative ions? Mostly the positive ions, right? सिर्फ nitrate के लिए negative ion के लिए होता है, बाकी सारे positive ions के लिए होता है. But nitrate के लिए you also need the aluminum, and you also need aluminum foil, and you also need your you also need to bomb it, right? But I think he adds it dropwise and then he adds it in excess. What's the observation by adding it dropwise, and what's the observation by adding it in excess? Well, I know dropwise will give you a green precipitate, and excess means soluble, which means what's the observation? Observation is not soluble. Please, observation is not soluble. That's written for the teacher. Please, it's a green precipitate. The green precipitate dissolves to give a green solution. That's the observation. So you could say a green solution forms, right? So for now, when you add it drop by drop, you say a green precipitate. I'll write PPT, but you have to write precipitate, please. So a green PPT forms. And right here, what happens with the green precipitate? The green precipitate dissolves to give a green solution. Mega questions are at the end, which are quite difficult from, I've tried to make them as much difficult, but it's not out of course. So it'll help you at the end. How did you know that chromium has those colors? Shahir, because this table is right here with you, and towards the start of this class, I explained everything. So I think you've missed out on this. You could watch the recording later on YouTube. Huh? To the second portion of solution E, the student adds 1 centimeter cube of dilute nitric acid followed by a few drops of aqueous silver nitrate. This is definitely a test for what? The halide ions. All the halide ions have the same test. You add dilute nitric acid, and yes, this table is given. You add dilute nitric acid, and then you add silver nitrate, because silver halides are insoluble. So you're going to get, if you get a white precipitate, that's going to be silver chloride. So the chloride ion is present. If you get a cream precipitate, that's going to be the silver bromide solid. And if you get the yellow precipitate, that's going to be the silver iodide solid, right? So what's the observation that you have? Well, you know that you had a bromide ion. So what's the observation? The observation is going to be a cream precipitate right here, and it's given to you. Even if you look at this table, even if you look at this table, he's given it to you right here. Chloride ion is white, the bromide ion is cream, and the iodide ion is yellow, right? Because AgI is yellow, AgBr is cream, and AgCl is white. Done, sir. Then Okay, then now you have solid F. So when अच्छा इसने तो बस और कुछ भी नहीं अच्छा इस सेकंड पोर्शन में इधर टेस्ट किया बस ये था हलवा अच्छा test on solid F. Let's look at the test on solid F. He's saying heat about half of solid F in a boiling tube until there's no further change. What does this mean? If you're heating it and there's constant change, that means something is being removed. It's either a gas or something is being removed, right? There's a constant change and then you heat it until there's no further change. So the thing that was being removed has been completely removed. Now what's that thing? It says a white solid forms a colorless liquid. Steam comes out of the boiling tube. IG sir, steam is coming out of the boiling tube, which means what? Which literally means that this solid is a hydrated solid. It had water of crystallizations right here, crystallization. And he's saying condensation is seen at the top of the boiling tube. After a while, the colorless liquid becomes a white solid. Okay, done. We don't have to look into details. We know that it's a hydrated salt from test 1. Now let's look at test 2. The remaining solid F is dissolved in water. So whatever solid F you had, now you dissolved it into water to make solution F. Okay, and now solution F is divided into 3 portions. These 3 portions mean that you want to perform 3 separate experiments, right? So now he's saying to the first portion of solution F in a boiling tube, add aqueous sodium hydroxide drop by drop and then in excess. What is he trying to test for? He's trying to test for the cations. Remember, there are 2 ways to test for the cations. Number 1 is the sodium hydroxide and sodium and the ammonium. And number 2, you also have the flame tests. Remember, the flame tests in your course are for these ions right here. These ions. So the positive ions, they can also have flame tests. Which positive ions? These, which are part of your course: red, yellow, lilac, orange, light blue, yada yada yada. And the way I remembered them was Roig Biff. So the way I remembered them, in our time, it was this table wouldn't have been given to us, right? So in our time, what I used to do is I used to say, hey, red is lithium ion, and then orange red is calcium 2 plus ion, then yellow is sodium ion, green is light green is my barium 2 plus ion, and then blue green right here, blue green is my copper 2 plus ion, and then obviously you have your potassium ion as the lilac color. So it's literally the spectrum. Yeah. So this is how I remembered it during my time, but you're going to be given this table. Acha. So if this is a test for a positive ion, let's see. It's saying it has no change. It has no change. Okay. And if it has no change, that means that it can't be aluminum 3 plus ion, it can't be the zinc 2 plus ion, and it can't also be the calcium 2 plus ion. Why? Why can't it be the zinc 2 plus ion, the calcium 2 plus ion, the aluminum 3 plus ion? Because this would have given you a white precipitate. And it can't be, your other positive ions, the transition metal positive ions, because there's no color that can be seen. So nothing is happening. So it can't be those positive ions that we studied. But he's saying when he warms the product, hold up, only read till here. He added sodium hydroxide and now he's also warming it. Tuck. What test is this? What test is this? Tuck, tuck, tuck. What test is this? He's using sodium hydroxide and now he warms it even. So now this is a test for the ammonium ion. Remember, not the nitrate ion, the ammonium ion. Nitrate ion ke liye you must also have to add aluminum foil with it. So now he's testing for the ammonium ion right here. And I've written it even here. I've written it dumbo jumbos. See, sodium hydroxide and warm. So students, they just don't focus on the question. So he added sodium hydroxide, nothing happened. But now when he's warming it and he's holding the red litmus paper blue, what is he testing for? He's testing for the ammonium ion. That's what he's testing for now. My voice is low. Wait, let me try to fix it. Can everybody hear me now? Wait. Yellow. Yeah. Is it fine now? Is it fine? Yes. Acha, it's fine now. So that's the test for ammonium ion. Now he's saying when he held a damp red litmus, the damp red litmus paper remains red. So there is no ammonium ion present. Why? Because if ammonium ion was present here, what would have happened is that the ammonium ion would have actually formed ammonia gas, which would have turned the damp red litmus paper blue. So yeah, no ammonium ion. So for now, we just know that the salt is hydrated. We don't know anything else about it. We know that it's hydrated. And we also know that it does not have any ammonium ion. That's the 2 things we know. To the second portion of add 1 cm cube of dilute nitric acid followed by a few drops of barium nitrate. What is this a test for? Nitric acid and now barium nitrate. This is a test for the sulfate ions. And he's saying, oh, absolutely, white precipitate. White precipitate is forming, which means what? Which confirms the presence of the sulfate ion. And why does this white precipitate form? Because the barium 2 plus ion that you've added, this is what I've added. It reacts with the sulfate ion to give you barium sulfate, which is a white PPT. Yeah. So this basically confirms the sulfate ion right here. Da, 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 da. And then, so we now know that it's a hydrated salt, does not have ammonium ion, and has the sulfate ion. Now, says to the third portion of solution F, add a few drops of acidified aqueous potassium manganate. What is he trying to test for? What is he trying to test for? Potassium manganate. He's trying to test for the sulfite ion. He's trying to, no, not SO4, please, up to table be given hai, yaar. He's trying to test for the sulfite ion, which is the reducing agent, yeah? So it says the solution becomes light purple. Kya bataya tha? What did I tell you at the start? Look at this. I'm a genius. I'm a genius. At the start, I told you all of these things, that you should keep all of this in your mind when you start. So if it becomes light purple, that means that no sulfite ion is present. Because if it went from purple to colorless, only then would I have said that sulfite ion is present. Light purple just means that a few drops of purple, it got diluted in, in this solution. So I'll say, hey, no sulfite ion, no sari. So you see, the observation in test 1 shows that the solid F is hydrated. Describe a chemical test to show that the condensation at the top of the boiling tube contains water, right? So how do you test for water? You could use any test. It's your choice. Do you add aluminum foil in the solution or irrelevant, kafiya? Chhod de. But you just need to know you add aluminum foil. That's it. So what do you test for water? You've done 2 tests. You can test either with anhydrous copper sulfate, or you could test with anhydrous cobalt chloride. And with anhydrous copper sulfate, you're gonna get blue. It's gonna go from white to blue. And with cobalt chloride, anhydrous cobalt chloride is blue, and it's gonna go from blue to pink, because cobalt chloride, when it becomes hydrated with 6 water molecules, that's pink, and copper sulfate, when it gets hydrated with 5 water molecules, bonded with 5 water molecules, it goes blue. So that's the result. What's the result? If you had used anhydrous copper 2 sulfate, you're gonna say the result is goes from white to blue. If you had used anhydrous cobalt chloride, you're gonna say, hey, the result is the color goes from blue to pink. Done. That's the result. Khatam. Okay, from the tests and observations in 3.1, it is not totally possible to identify the positive ion of solid F. No shit, Sherlock. Give another test that could be carried out to help identify this cation. So remember, I told you even before, I told you that either you add sodium hydroxide for positive ions, or there's also one more technique. What is that technique called? What is that technique called? That technique is called a flame test. So you could perform flame tests for positive ions. And which flame test is a part of your course? Only these. Yeah. So I'll say, hey, perform a flame test if you aren't able to figure this out. And it says, identify the negative ion in solid F. Which negative ion was present? What is the negative ion? Right here, the sulfate ion. That's the beauty. The sulfate ion is the negative ion. SO42 minus. आसान है मुश्किल है. Why not add ammonium hydroxide? Because if you added ammonium hydroxide or aqueous ammonia, you'd realize that it would roughly give you the same observations with which are with sodium hydroxide. So if you aren't getting observations with sodium hydroxide, it is very much possible that you won't get observations with aqueous ammonia. So what's the other way left? The other way is that is left to perform a flame test. Yeah. आगे जाते हैं. Solid H. देखिए, solid H is barium carbonate. Barium carbonate. Barium carbonate का क्या मतलब है? You have the barium 2 plus ions and the carbonate 3 minus ions. Now think about it. For the barium 2 plus ions, how do I think? It's a positive ion. So there are 2 ways. Either perform a flame test or add sodium hydroxide. Is there any sodium hydroxide added to barium 2 plus ions? कोई ऐसे है table में? नहीं. This is not a part of my course. It's not given. Look at this. In the table, I don't have any barium 2 plus ion test. But if I look at my flames, I am getting a light green flame with barium 2 plus ion. So I'd say, hey, for barium 2 plus ion, I could perform a flame test and I'd get a light green flame. Always try to isolate the ions, right? And then for the carbonate, I know that if I add dilute acid, any dilute acid, normally we add hydrochloric acid, but if you add dilute acid, what's going to happen is that you're going to get carbon dioxide, right? And this, because of this carbonate, carbon dioxide forms, and this carbon dioxide turns lime water milky when you bubble it through. right? When you bubble it through lime water, it turns lime water milky. So that's the test for carbonate ion, and that will actually, in fact, confirm the carbonate ion's presence. Now, why does this happen? Please, you need to know the why. You need to be able to write equations. क्या मुझे पता है कि ये barium carbonate है? Do I know that this is barium carbonate? And if I add dilute acid to it, which acid is the student adding? He's saying the student adds excess dilute nitric acid. You need to be able to write equations that you've studied in acid, bases, and salts. So I know that if I take a metal carbonate, barium carbonate, and I add dilute nitric acid to it, why does it give me carbon dioxide? Because there's literally a reaction that goes on. And what is that reaction? If your teachers haven't taught you this, what can I say? Metal carbonate plus acid, what does that give me? It gives me what? Barium nitrate, and it gives me H2O, and it gives me carbon dioxide. And that's why we say that you could add dilute acid to the carbonate ion. Basically, this acid reacts with the carbonate ion to give you carbon dioxide. But this is the whole bunch. This is like the whole equation that takes place. So you get barium nitrate. I don't care about balancing it. You get H2O and you get carbon dioxide. And then we test for carbon dioxide. We bubble it through lime water. If it turns lime water milky, we're going to say, hey, the carbonate ion was present, right? Nice thing. The student adds excess dilute nitric acid to the sample of solid H in a boiling tube and tests any gas produced. What are the observations? Now, there's two ways to go about this. देखिए, आराम से तसल्ली से सवाल पढ़ा करें. The student adds excess acid. Excess acid means what? If this was a solid, you see, it's saying a solid H. This was solid, acid is aqueous, and barium nitrate is aqueous. We know that nitrates are all soluble, right? And water is liquid, and carbon dioxide is a gas. I know my state symbols as well, right? Now, my question to you guys is that if it's excess dilute nitric acid, if it's excess acid, what should happen to all the solid? What should happen to all the solid? If it's excess acid, what should happen? All the solid is going to react with this acid and it's going to become aqueous. So what is the one observation? The solid will disappear, or you could say the solid dissolves or the solid disappears. So one observation is that the solid disappears, right? Or you could say dissolves. What if this was not excess dilute nitric acid? My question, it has never been tested. What if this was not excess dilute nitric acid? He said you added dilute nitric acid, but it was not in excess. Then the solid would decrease in size. You would just say the solid decreases in size. You won't say solid disappears. No, it wouldn't remain. Some of it would still react, right? It would not all disappear, right? Not all of it would disappear. So students just, tend to rote learn things. Okay, oh, solid will always disappear. No, if it's not excess, then not all of the solid will dissolve. Only part of it would dissolve. So say the solid decreases in mass or in size. That's in size is better. It makes sense. That's what you observe with your naked eyes. Kiddo, barium carbonate is insoluble, but it still reacts with an acid because it's a weak base. Weak bases react with acids. So when it reacts with acids, yeah. Acha ji, khair, solid disappear. And then one more thing, when you have a liquid or an aqueous solution and a gas is being formed, you can also say that my beautiful carbon dioxide forms, right? And if carbon dioxide, if a gas is forming in an aqueous solution, that means that you're gonna observe effervescence. Or you could even say fizzing because of this gas being produced. देखिए एक इक्वेशन मुझे, या बबलिंग भी कह सकते हैं, एक इक्वेशन मुझे आती है, और उस इक्वेशन से मैं सब कुछ लिख सकता हूं. Sir, your speed is too fast to process. Fatima, kiddo, at this point I expect you guys to know a lot of things. That's why my pace is a little fast, because if you can't catch up, then you could watch the recording later on. मैं इसलिए तेज जा रहा हूं because we Ashwan Kenny, what are we doing today? Khair. And now one other observation, test for any gas produced. So what is the observation with that test? See, देखो, what is the observation when you test it for carbon dioxide? We are going to say, hey, lime water turns milky when gas is bubbled through it, right? That's the test. So he's tested for it. We are going to assume कि इसने test सही किया है, लेकिन चलो bracket पे लिख देते हैं, when gas is bubbled through it. Then I won't be able to cover a lot of things, right? It's which paper is this, which paper? It's not a paper, it's just a booklet that I've created. It's present in all the discussion forums, it's present in the group, and it's also, if you're not a part of any group, you could find it. It'll be uploaded onto YouTube, kiddo, don't worry. You could find it on the story of Conceptuals Academy. So the link is given. Acha, identify the gas made in A part 1. That's carbon dioxide. The solution produced in A part, देखो सवाल पढ़े हैं, चीजें बड़ी सिंपल है, सब कुछ given है. The solution produced in A part 1. Now, how do I know which solution is produced in A part 1? Solution means that it's soluble, right? Which solution is being produced in A part 1? You'd only be able to know this if you knew your reactions. So I knew that this reaction took place, and what solution forms? What solution forms? This barium nitrate is actually what is forming, right? So you need to know your reactions. If you don't know reactions, you won't be able to, go from one step to another if he keeps on using the same thing over. He can say, hey, I use the product from A part 1, I use the product from B part 1, I use the solution from C part 1. So he's using the same thing and he's processing he's taking you slowly and gradually throughout this exam paper, right? तो अब वो आपको क्या कह रहे हैं? वो कह रहे हैं कि मैंने सोल्यूशन लिया, जो ए पार्ट 1 में जो सोल्यूशन बना उसको मैंने सोल्यूशन जे का और उसको मैंने, so he took barium nitrate aqueous, right? I think now I'm dividing this. So solution J is roughly my barium nitrate which he wants to test. तो ऐसे दिमाग इस्तेमाल करना है. अब कहते हैं it is divided into solution A and into 4 approximately equal portions because he wants to perform probably 4 tests on it, 4 different tests. So he's saying he carries out the flame test on the first portion of solution J. Solution J के first portion पे उसने flame test perform किया. कहते हैं observation क्या है? So we know that you have the barium 2 plus ion. So what's the observation? And we wrote it even at the start that barium 2 plus के साथ हमारे पास light green आएगा flame. So a light green flame is observed, is produced or observed and whatnot. Done. To the second portion of solution J, the students adds a few drops of aqueous potassium manganate. Right now, realize that if he's adding aqueous potassium manganate, what should happen? If the sulfite ion is present, this is a test for what? This is a test for the sulfite ion. So if the sulfite ion is present, only then will the aqueous potassium manganate only then will the aqueous potassium manganate go from purple to colorless. But realize कि उसने जब aqueous potassium manganate डाला, it is not going to go from purple to colorless, it's just going to become light purple because there's no sulfite ion present. And why would it become light purple or pale purple? Because you're adding it to a solution. This is a colorless solution. So when you add a few drops to a colorless solution, the purple color fades a little. So it's not because of the sulfite ion, it's just that yes, potassium manganate can be used for the test of any reducing agent. Yes. You can't say it remains purple because that's not what you see with your naked eye, Prathna. Because with your naked eye, you'll observe that if you add a few drops of purple to, it's like adding Jami Shirin. It's like adding Ruafza to a glass of water. Just add a few drops of Ruafza to a glass of water. It doesn't remain red. It becomes pale red, So, yeah. To the third portion of J, a student adds a few drops of dilute sulfuric acid. Ah ha 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 ha. देखिए, J is barium nitrate aqueous, which means what? Let's separate them. Barium nitrate aqueous means I have the barium 2 plus ions and the nitrate 1 minus ions. And if I'm adding dilute sulfuric acid, that means I'm adding the hydrogen ion and the sulfate ion. That's sulfuric acid, right? But if you look at all of these ions, 2 of these ions are going to precipitate. दो ions आपस में जब टकराएंगे, they are going to precipitate. Why? Because they're insoluble. And which ions are insoluble when they combine together? That's barium sulfate. When barium ions and sulfate ions come together, they will form a white precipitate because barium sulfate is insoluble, right? So I'm going to say, what's the observation? I'll say a white precipitate forms. अच्छा जी, आगे. The fourth portion of J. To the fourth portion of J, the students add 1 cm depth of dilute nitric acid followed by aqueous barium nitrate. अब देखें, बच्चों को उसने इधर कंफ्यूज किया. What is this a test for? This is a test for sulfate ions. और चूंकि ऊपर बच्चों ने कहा, oh, sulfate ion is present, let's just write, there's gonna be a white precipitate because barium sulfate will form. No. Why? Because this is a separate portion. It's basically, what are you adding barium nitrate to? You're adding barium nitrate to literally barium nitrate. Solution J is what? Solution J is barium nitrate. That's solution J. And you add more barium nitrate to it. So what's going to happen? There's going to be no change. There's literally, so रटे ना हमारे यार, देखें कि हो क्या रहा है. There's going to be no change. Students might think, oh, this is a test for sulfate and it was present above. No. If the examiner had said, think about this. If the examiner had said, the student adds he adds dilute nitric acid and a few drops of barium nitrate to the above portion, to the above solution right here. and there are still a few sulfate ions left, only then would you get a white precipitate. But this is solution J. Solution J, तो ये है, it's barium nitrate. That's solution J. So why would there be any change? Why would a white precipitate form? There's no sulfate ion in barium nitrate. So he's just adding barium nitrate to barium nitrate. That's dumb. Yeah. Tests on solution I. ठीक है जी. Let's look at solution I test and then we'll take a 2 minutes break. Washroom break, but solution I कर लेते हैं. देखें, remember, when you have solutions, when you have solids, it's gonna be composed of positive ions and negative ions, positive ions and negative ions, positive ions and negative ions. The positive ions have two types of tests. One is with sodium hydroxide and aqueous ammonia, and the other type is basically using a flame test. And the negative ions, basically, you have it all in the table. You have the chloride, bromide, iodide. You basically react it with, you add dilute nitric acid to remove any impurities and or contaminations, and then you follow it with silver nitrate. And then if it's chloride, white PPT, if it's bromide, clean PPT, if it's iodide, yellow PPT, and it's given to you in the table, right? Each is आपको given. Yes, the recording will be uploaded. If dilute sulfuric acid was in excess above, yes, then, and if dilute sulfuric acid was in excess and he used the same thing right here, instead of using the separate portion of solution J, he used this. If he says he added barium nitrate to the resultant solution from part D, then you would have said. So it's all about mixing things. Sir, everything seems so easy right now, but while doing past paper, my brain explodes. Shameen, it'll be fine. Just you need to practice more and think logically. Think logically. अच्छा जी, अब देखो ना, कह रहे एक solution है I. So I know that this solution is going to have cations. Let's separate it. It's going to have cations. It's going to have anions, which are the negative ions. Yeah, and he'll perform certain tests for cations and he'll perform certain tests for anions. I'm saying to the first portion, he's adding aqueous sodium hydroxide and he warms the mixture. What is this a test for? अपने टेबल में देख लें, अगर नहीं याद तो टेबल में देख लें. What is this a test for? It's not a test for nitrate. For nitrates, you also have to add aluminum foil. This is a test for ammonium ion. He's testing for the positive ion. MashaAllah. काफी zinc carbonate. Yeah. अच्छा जी, it's gonna be uploaded onto my YouTube at carboxyl. Okay. अच्छा जी. So it's a damp red litmus turns blue. If the damp red litmus turns blue, it means that ammonia ion. It means that ammonia ion कह रहा हूँ, ammonia gas is being released. Yeah, and because ammonia gas is weak base, it turns the red litmus paper blue because it's basic in nature, right? But this in turn confirms what? This in turn confirms that you have the ammonium ion present. So याद रखें, this is a test for ammonium ion. Remember, sodium hydroxide and just warming, test for ammonium ion. Sodium hydroxide, warming and adding aluminum foil, test for nitrate ion. Yeah. Yeah, if you don't know what test it is, you could literally go to the table. Absolutely. So use logic. Yeah, don't need to remember things. अगर बिल्कुल याद ना हो तो टेबल में जाए ना, लेकिन it's just gonna slow you down. Okay, so we know that the positive ion. So we figured out the positive ion. So I could safely say cation has been identified. Let's look at the anion. So he's saying the second portion, dilute nitric acid is added, followed by silver nitrate. हाँ जी बताएं बच्चों, what is this a test for? It's a test for halide ion. So it's a test for chloride, bromide, iodine. Chloride, bromide, iodide, right? But if a white precipitate forms, you know that the ion present was chloride. The ion present was chloride ion. Identify the gas produced in test 1. What gas is being produced in test 1? That's the ammonia gas. Please realize it's not ammonium, ammonia gas, right? Or if you don't know how to spell it, you could just write NH3. State what is observed when the gas produced in test 1 is tested using the damp blue litmus paper. So what would happen if you use ammonia gas, you use ammonia with a damp blue litmus paper? It remains blue, nothing happens, it remains blue. So observation is what you see with your naked eyes. What do I see with my naked eyes? I see with my naked eyes that the blue litmus remains blue. That's what's observed. Blue, that's it. Yeah. No change लिख लें, एक ही बात है, no change लिख लें, blue litmus remains blue, that's fine. Identify solution I. So it's 2 marks. Why? Because 1 mark for identifying the ammonium ion and 1 mark for identifying the chloride ion. इसमें एक part add करूं, G part F G H. Do you want me to add a part here? एक part add करूं? Why no change? Because when you want to test for ammonia gas, you test it with a red litmus, and it turns the damn red litmus blue. Yeah, but if it's a blue litmus initially, then it'll remain blue because it's सर ये दो लाइंस क्यों देते हैं? दो लाइंस वैसे देते हैं, अमोनियम दो लाइंस इसलिए देते हैं कि कुछ बच्चे ये कर सकते हैं. Some students could write ammonium ion and chloride ion. तो कुछ बच्चे ये करते हैं, लेकिन it's better to write it like this. It's better solution. अच्छा, one more thing. Do you want me to add a part to it? This has never been tested, but one बस एक part पे 2 minute break लेते हैं. Write the equation for the above reaction. मैं सिर्फ चेक करना चाहता हूँ ना कि आप लोग कितना आपकी इक्वेशन स्ट्रांग है. राइट द इक्वेशन फॉर द अबव रिएक्शन फॉर द रिएक्शन इन टेस्ट 1. चलो जी, लिखिए जी. इक्वेशन क्या बननी चाहिए? देखो ये चीजें आती हैं, ये चीजें यू डोंट नीड टू बैलेंस इट, बट आनी चाहिए आपको. देखो सिंपल है ना. नाउ यू नो व्हाट सॉल्यूशन इट इज. क्वेश्चंस देख लें, हैं देख लें. You know what solution it is. You literally know what solution it is. And you also know what you're reacting it with. तो इसमें क्या है? टेस्ट 1 दिखा दे, देख लें. Explain part G again. Rawa, there's no explanation to part G. I identified this ammonium ion here and I identified the chloride ion here. So the solution is ammonium chloride. It's just a combination. Wrong. Prathna, absolutely wrong. Equation देखें. रट्टे मारे. Ammonium ion plus chloride ion gives me ammonium chloride. That's not the equation. That's not the reaction that takes place in test 1. टेस्ट 1 में आपने कुछ चीजें ऐड की, उसकी वजह से एक रिएक्शन हो रहा है जिसकी वजह से अमोनिया गैस रिलीज हो रहा है, जो मैंने आपको शुरू में बताया. ओह यस, अननोन गेमर इज एब्सोल्युटली राइट. अननोन गेमर चीता. So unknown gamer is saying, sir, it was so simple, it was so simple that now because we know that it's ammonium chloride, at the start in test 1, when you added sodium hydroxide to it, why was ammonia gas being produced? Because when we added sodium hydroxide to it, we know this equation. This is a part of our course. Ammonium salts reacting with strong bases. What's going to happen? Sodium chloride is going to form. The OH in the base and the H in the ammonium ion is going to give you H2O. And what's going to be left behind? The ammonia gas is going to be left behind. So you get NaCl plus H2O plus ammonia gas. I stress a lot on this because he could have easily asked you that the solution from test 1. He does not do this normally, but in IGCSE, he started this, right? So he could have easily said that the solution from test 1 is carried out, further tests are carried out from on the solution from test 1. तो आप देखें, आपको पता है कि टेस्ट 1 के बाद मेरे पास सोडियम क्लोराइड आ गया. ठीक है. माय यूट्यूब चैनल इज कार्बोक्सिल किडो, CARBOXYL @कार्बोक्सिल है, जगह जगह लिखा जा रहा हूँ. Done. Now let's take a 2-minute break before answering this question. Do you want to answer this on your own? ये answer करे फिर उसके बाद ना, hey Avinash, what's up kiddo? Answer this on your own, please. Try to answer this on your own. I'll take a 2-minute break and then I'll quickly answer it. Yeah, I'll take a 2-minute and then I'll go into my mega questions because I think we are short on time. Are we? Are we though? No, but we are not short on time. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. Maybe we're able to solve it. Who knows? चलो देख लेते हैं. I want to make sure that we do mega questions because mega question is complete salt analysis. Mega question is complete salt. So try to do it on your own, please. The booklet is available. Yeah, dekh lo. This workbook has been uploaded everywhere. Zoya, you can get this from variable. It will be given in the YouTube description as well. But at Conceptuals, if you go onto Instagram and go on to at conceptuals_academy, it's uploaded on the story. The link to this booklet, 20-page booklet, question 3, 20-page booklet is uploaded on Conceptual Academy. How long is this class? It's a marathon class from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. मैं पानी पी लूं थोड़ा सा. ओरे साजना. यार मेरे मेगा क्वेश्चंस बहुत मुश्किल है, इसलिए I wanna make sure ताकि आप लोग ये करो. बहुत मुश्किल नहीं है, it's very conceptual. That's the mega questions. These are the mega questions that I made today. and this will cover every single thing. But it's a little technical, so I want you guys to first revise things. इसमें बहुत सी चीजें हैं जो नहीं पूछी, लेकिन मैंने पूछी हैं इसमें जस्ट में, और पूछ सकते हैं. इतना मुश्किल आ सकता है अगर एग्जामिनर का दिमाग खराब हो, मेरी तरह पागल दिमाग हो, तो वो पूछ सकता है. Is this ATP guess? No, it's not. It's just practice. There's no guess in ATP. We all know what comes in ATP. Question number 3, salt analysis. Four. Question number 4, experimental design. He'll either ask you to prepare salts or he'll give you a situation solubility के लिहाज से बस. Or question number 2, it's either going to be rate of reaction or it's going to be titration. Question number 1, it's either going to be precautions or it's going to be identification of your apparatus. That's it. That's it. My booklets, everything is given in the ATP. Sorry, chili on that. Sursal pasarka pamakismani. Hey, yo, sir, you're so slim. Who's the slim shady? Who's the slim shady? आ जाएगा यार, टेंशन ना लो यार, जरार आ जाएगा पक्का. Are you a Pushtun? Yes, तो या सर आपकी राइटिंग है या थंडर बोल्ट्स की ड्राइंग? बस एक तो मेरी राइटिंग के पीछे ना पड़े हो. सर आर यू फ्रॉम लोअर? How would I be a Pushtun if I was from lower? Lower. I spent some time at Hson. I did my A levels from Hson back in the day. I was an Hsonian. Yeah. But I'm a Pushtun. तेरी दुनिया से. I want sushi. I'm so hungry. I don't like sushi. Yes, Shami. होके मजबूर चला मैं बहुत दूर. Sir, wear glasses. Your eyesight will get weak. Okay जी. बहुत दूर चला. पहन लिए ग्लासेस. खुश. सर आप मैरिड हैं? नो, आई एम नॉट मैरिड. Can we practice planning questions kind of difficult? Yusra, I've said this at the start of the class, kiddo. करेंगे यार, हर सवाल करेंगे. आज का दिन सॉल्ट एनालिसिस को मैं पक्का करवा रहा हूँ. उसके बाद मेरी और आपकी सॉल्ट एनालिसिस की कहानी खत्म हो जानी. ईआरडी करने इज इफेक्टिव. डू एटीपी मोर. डू टॉपिकल मोर. यार देखो, एटीपी में अगर आपके पास टॉपिकल नहीं, मैंने तो बनाया, लेकिन अगर आपके पास नहीं है तो व्हाट यू शुड डू इज यू शुड सॉल्व क्वेश्चन नंबर 3s of all the paper first, then solve question number 2s of all the paper. Like, do it question wise so you know what's going to come in your paper. You're going to get a proper idea. Topical always improves your conceptual understanding and pattern recognition. Booklet marking scheme is available for purchase. You could contact Miss Noor. The proper booklet जो ATP topical booklet है मेरी. वो chili on the track. Some back here for a snack. It just smell like paper. Don't the agabe you at? Happy Hoor. What's your age? I'm ageless. Done with the question? Done with the question? Done with the question? Okay. Copper to carbonate. What is the thought process? हाँ जी. Copper to Miss Noor को contact करें. Copper to carbonate. 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 Copper to... I'm a chartered accountant, Fatma. Copper to... I work at PwC. Copper to carbonate. Copper to carbonate. What's the thought process? The thought process is, hey, I'm going to isolate the copper 2 plus and the carbonate. Now, if I can isolate them, I can easily look into their tests. So for copper 2 plus, there are two types of tests that I could perform. I could perform flame tests, or I could also test it with sodium hydroxide slash aqueous ammonia. With sodium hydroxide, it gives me a light blue precipitate, which is insoluble, which means it remains. With aqueous ammonia, it gives me a light blue precipitate, but in excess, it dissolves to give you a dark blue solution. Carbonate का क्या है? Dilute acid. Yeah, yes, Fatma. सी एंड केमिस्ट्री हैट्स ऑफ थैंक्स सर बुकलेट किधर मिलेगी यार मिस नूर को कांटेक्ट करें मिल जाएगी क्लास के बाद मुझे मैसेज कर दें मेरा कांटेक्ट नंबर है 0333 5694 666 यू कैन कांटेक्ट मी एट द एंड so if you add dilute acid to it, any acid, hydrochloric acid, because metal carbonates, they're weak bases, right? And the carbonates basically gives you carbon dioxide. And then you could test for carbon dioxide to confirm the presence of carbonate. बस अब यही thought process इस्तेमाल करना है. अच्छा जी. So the student adds dilute hydrochloric acid to solid K. What was solid K? Solid K was copper carbonate, right? Let's just write it on the top of it. So he added copper carbonate to dilute hydrochloric acid to solid K. What are the observations? Now देखो एक मार्क का सवाल है. अब अगर if I know my reaction, copper carbonate is right here, and he's adding dilute hydrochloric acid. Can I write the equation for myself? Can I write? I know it's fizzing. I know it's fizzing, and there are multiple other observations as well. But can I write the reaction for myself, please? Can I write the reaction? Absolutely. You have copper carbonate, which is a weak base, and we know bases react with what? They react with dilute hydrochloric acid. They react with acids, and it's going to give you copper chloride aqueous. It's going to give me H2O, and it's going to give me carbon dioxide. And because it's not mentioned here, it's excess hydrochloric acid. So I'm not going to say that the solid disappears. Although I could say the solid would decrease in mass, solid decreases in size. That's what I could see. Because I don't know if it's excess. I don't know. And one more thing I could say is because carbon dioxide gas is being produced in a solution, I could also say that Janabe Wali, I could also say that I can observe effervescence. And then because carbon dioxide is produced, I could also say that lime water turns milky. Lime water turns milky if you bubble. I have to specify it. If gas produced is bubbled through it. So these are multiple observations. ओरे साजना यार एफर्वेसेंस लिख लो मैंने स्लैश डाला है या ये लिख लो या ये लिख लो या ये लिख लो वह एक मार्क का सवाल आई हैड ए स्टार्स हानिया सर ये सारे टीचर्स क्वेश्चन 3 करवा रहे हैं फॉर फ्री बस क्या कर सकते हैं इंस्पिरेशन ले रहे हैं अब मेरा मुंह क्यों खुलवाना चाह रहे हैं इट्स क्वाइट अनफॉर्चुनेट टू बी वेरी ऑनेस्ट इट्स क्वाइट अनफॉर्चुनेट बट क्या ही कर सकते हैं यार इतना लेवल है लेवल वो कहते हैं सबके लेवल निकलेंगे instead of becoming a good teacher you start लेकिन I love this I swear to God I love this I love competition I thrive on competition I used to be kicked out of my classes for asking too many questions and that's what made me today सबर करें आ रहा हूँ बेटा A levels में आ रहा हूँ बड़ी लोगों की दुकानें बंद हो जानी है आने दो हमारी ऑर्गेनिक ग्रोथ है वर्ड ऑफ माउथ मैं कभी ऐसी वो नहीं कहता वर्ड ऑफ माउथ आ रहा हूँ बेटा आ रहा हूँ मैं आने दे मुझे ए लेवल्स में पढ़ाना शुरू कर दूं बहुत लोगों की दुकानें बंद हो जाएंगी और मैं पढ़ाऊंगा मैंने कसम खाई हुई है कि इंशाल्लाह मैं पढ़ाऊंगा बस सब्र करें आपको पता लगेगा कि फर्क किधर है पता लगेगा मेरे दिल नारे नारे नी तू लोड़वाड़ी I love this because if there's competition between teachers then students get the advantage of it because it's simple economics for you. Yeah, if there's competition every person will try to improve their quality, try to reduce their price, improve quality, reduce price, and the students are going to benefit, the customers are going to benefit, right? मेरे दिल नारे नारे नी तू लोड़वाड़ी है दिल तेना दिन टुटुगा त पता लगूगा okay focus. The solution made in A is solution M. कैडी solution बना है? Yeah. Solution made in M. Solution A is made in is called M. Solution made in A is called M. Which solution is he talking about? Which solution is he talking about? Which solution? Hanji. Copper carbonate? Oh no, you dumbo jumbo. It's copper chloride right here. That's the solution that was being produced. So you need to know equations. That's why I always say you need to know equations. देखो उसने link कर दिया. So now we know it's copper chloride. Sir, can you please teach organic chem? I've taught it, Hiba. It's uploaded online. It's uploaded onto YouTube. The 6-hour marathon is uploaded. Everything is there. It's not just a crash course. It's the entire thing. अच्छा तो अब क्या होगा कि दिस सोल्यूशन M इज बेसिकली कॉपर क्लोराइड एक्वस रिमेंबर ओके लिखो अपने लिए नोटेट करो अब इसको 2 पोर्शंस में उसने डिवाइड किया व्हाई डिड ही डिवाइड इट इनटू 2 पोर्शंस बिकॉज़ ही वांट्स प्रॉब्ली ही वांट्स टू परफॉर्म 2 टेस्ट्स To the first portion, the student adds aqueous ammonia dropwise until it's in excess. So what are the observations? Oh, it's a 3-mark question. So aqueous ammonia, when he added dropwise, what would happen? You know, you have the copper 2 plus ions, right? So when he added aqueous ammonia dropwise, a light blue precipitate would form. That's 1 mark right there. But now in excess, which dissolves, in excess it dissolves, right? So it dissolves to give a dark blue solution. Dark blue solution in excess. And that's the 3 marks. 1 mark for writing light blue, 1 mark for saying it dissolves, and the other mark for saying dark blue solution. Yeah, that's it. It's given, everything is given. I've shown it to you, everything. But at the start, I also showed you some things that you should know on your fingertips. And if you can't remember them now, it's fine. You could look into that at the end. Hanji, the student carries out a flame test on the second portion of solution M. Remember, solution M is copper chloride. So the flame test, copper 2 plus ion, is for the positive ion. And what is the flame test with it? It's a, what is the flame? If you forget, God forbid, if you forget, it's given. It's a blue-green flame test right here. So what is the flame? The state, the color of the Bunsen flame, is gives a blue-green flame is observed. Is observed. Da, 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 da. Describe how the student should carry out the flame test. How do you carry out the flame test? Pretty easy. What do you, it's a solution. Remember, it's a solution. So what can I do? Use a clean nichrome or dip a clean nichrome wire, dip a clean nichrome wire or just a wire, nichrome wire, nichrome wire into solution M. And then what does he do? He dips it and then he just, puts it at the edge of the Bunsen burner. So the flaming hot blue Bunsen, blue flame of the Bunsen burner. So that's the nichrome wire. And now he's just gonna, place it at the edge of the roaring blue flame of the Bunsen burner. And he's just gonna observe the color. So place the wire or loop, whatever, near at the edge of the roaring blue Bunsen flame, yeah, blue flame of the BB, and observe the flame color. Observe and compare the flame color. तहा 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 चिल 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 एयर होल ओपन होगा क्लोज होगा सब कुछ आखिरी मेगा क्वेश्चंस में सब कुछ है मेटल वायर इस्तेमाल कर लें जो मर्जी इस्तेमाल कर लें नॉर्मली नाइक्रोम वायर इस्तेमाल करते हैं क्यों मेगा क्वेश्चन में मैंने सब कुछ दिया चिल 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 मेगा क्वेश्चन का ये फ्लेम टेस्ट की सारे प्रिकॉशंस मैंने मेगा क्वेश्चन में डाले हुए हैं करते हैं ना यार चिल करो थोड़ा सा चार्जर लगा लूं थोड़ा यार अगर 10 बजे तक जितना हुआ उतना ही करेंगे फिर मेगा क्वेश्चंस पे जाएंगे बीबीज बंसन बर्नर रास्ता छोड़िए अब हम आ गए नॉट दैट बीबी सर मेगा क्वेश्चंस पहले करवा दें यार नहीं पहले तो कॉन्सेप्ट तो डेवलप कर लो ना अच्छा अब सॉल्यूशन एल है एक हमारे पास और ही डिवाइडेड इनटू टू पोर्शंस व्हाई वुड ही डिवाइडेड इनटू टू पोर्शंस बिकॉज दिस डम पर्सन माय दिस डम पर्सन may want to perform two separate tests. To the first portion, he adds sodium hydroxide dropwise until in excess. A white precipitate forms. Hold up. A white precipitate forms. What does this indicate? नीचे छोड़ दो पहले नीचे छोड़ दो A white precipitate forms. Dropwise. When you add it dropwise, a white precipitate forms. This means that it could be the aluminum 3 plus, the zinc 2 plus, the calcium 2 plus, because they are all white, whiterino. But in excess, it's saying it's insoluble in excess. So that eliminates the aluminum ion and the zinc ion, and that confirms the fact that it's the calcium 2 plus ion. हाँ हाँ जाहिर सी बात है ट्रांजिशन मेटल नहीं है लेकिन वाइट प्रेसिपिटेट का मतलब इट्स आइदर गोना बी द aluminum 3 plus the zinc 2 plus and or the calcium 2 plus but if it's insoluble in excess then you're going to say aluminum भी नहीं है zinc भी नहीं है it's calcium 2 plus right because aluminum and zinc are soluble and it's given in the table which I revised at the start of this class. To the second portion of solution L, add 1 cm cube of dilute nitric acid followed by a few drops of silver nitrate. What is this a test for? Dilute nitric acid and silver nitrate. Test for halides. Halides are negative ions of group 7. A cream precipitate forms. So cream precipitate means that the silver ion in fact came into contact with the bromide ion and it gives you AgBr solid, which is cream. So it's basically the Br1 minus. That's the ionic equation for it. इक्वेशंस आने चाहिए आपको। अच्छा, so identify solution L. So solution L is calcium 2 plus and barium 1 bromium 1 minus, you know, Br1 minus. So it's calcium bromide, CaBr2. Why am I saying CaBr2? Because calcium has a 2 plus ion and bromide ion has a 1 minus ion. Cross multiply, you get calcium bromide. Don't write CaBr. That's the formula. Or you could say calcium 2 plus and you could write Br1 minus here. That's the solution. That's what it consists of. खत्म। अब आपकी मर्जी है, क्या ये करवा दूं और क्या जनाब वाला हम डायरेक्ट मेगा क्वेश्चन पे चले जाएं। ये करवा दूं कि मेगा क्वेश्चन पे जाऊं? Until you get comfortable, Mohammed. Mega question, mega question, mega question. Okay, we'll take 5 minutes break and start off with mega question. देखिए, I'm warning you beforehand. Um, it's a little unorthodox. Simple question, please. नो नो, ये करवाएं अभी। इट्स अ लिटिल अनऑर्थोडॉक्स, लेकिन बड़े मजे के सवाल मैंने सुबह बनाए हैं। सुबह मैंने कहा सबर करो, बच्चों को सही तंग करता हूँ थोड़ा सा, है पता लगे पढ़े हम। सर इतनी एनर्जी किधर से आती है? प्लीज स्पेल द नेम ऑफ द ड्रग। हाय, रास्ता छोड़िए अब हम आ गए। स्पाइट फ्यूल्स माय, ओ गड़बड़ की ये मेरा आ गए। अच्छा जी। अच्छा, वो कह रहे पोटेशियम। अभी 5 मिनट ब्रेक ले लूं मैं? 2 मिनट। 9:30 पे शुरू करते हैं। रेड बुल, बुल रेड। यस, ये कौन था? यस, सकीना, यू कैड ऑल्सो राइट इट इन वर्ड्स। कैल्शियम ब्रोमाइड, यू कुड राइट इट इन वर्ड्स। आय हाय हाय, बच्चे तो चीते बने हुए हैं, सही सही जवाब लिखी जा रहे हैं। सबर करो, आगे मुश्किल होता जा रहे हैं। मुश्किल नहीं है, टू बी ऑनेस्ट इट्स प्रीटी इजी इफ यू स्टडीड फ्रॉम मी। सर एंग्री फेस प्लीज। आई एम ट्राइंग टू बी एंग्री। सर ये उम्मीद नहीं थी, यहूदी है रेड बुल। भाई मैं नहीं पीता ये रेड बुल, क्या हो गया? सर आप भूखी हैं, अल्लाह माफ करे। सर इज इट ट्रू दैट यू लव केमिस्ट्री इसीलिए यू टीच? यस शहीर। अल्लाह माफ करे जोया। चिल चिल चिल, और लड़कों चिल। हैशटैग नो होमो प्लीज। नो नो नो, आई डोंट लव यू गाइस, सॉरी। नो 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 नो। सो डू व्हाट यू लव, राइट शहीर। तो थैंक यू नानी बनने के लिए, बहुत शुक्रिया। मतलब अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह मेरी नानी जिंदा है तो वो मुझे मशवरे दे सकती है, लेकिन बहुत शुक्रिया आपने मुझे ये मशवरा दिया कि मैं केमिस्ट्री करूं और मैं अपनी चार्ट अकाउंटेंसी का प्रोफेशन छोड़ दूं, जिसमें मैं बहुत सारे पैसे छाप रहा हूँ, वो छोड़ दूं और केमिस्ट्री पढ़ूं। यार ये शौक है आप लोगों के साथ, जस्ट नीड टू कनेक्ट, हाँ, विद स्टूडेंट्स। अच्छा 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 अच्छा, ठीक है ठीक है ठीक है। तो भाई छापो भाई छापो, पैसे छापो, अच्छा करे बिजनेस। अच्छा, वन मोर थिंग, इफ यू guys have any businesses that you guys have started, I will be the happiest person to promote it for you. At least the one thing that I could do is just share it with people, right? And students. तो I encourage you guys to build businesses बनाएं। इस यही उम्र है, बनाए बनाए entrepreneur बने। मेरे से पैसे ना मांगे, बस मेरे से पैसे ना मांगे, मेरे पास पैसे नहीं होते। हाँ, मेरी अपनी चीजों में मैं लगाता हूँ। Entrepreneur is just a fancy name. Yes, yes, it's a goated business idea. Do what you're good at and make it into a business. Yes, you guys can contact me regarding business ideas. Absolutely, I can help you through it. है, लेकिन मैं कंसल्टेंसी के बहुत पैसे चार्ज करता हूँ, मजाक करूँ। इट्स फ्री फॉर ऑल ऑफ यू। It's free for all of you. All the consultancies, business feasibilities, market strategies, and whatnot. NPV calculations, payback period, सब मैं आपके लिए हाजिर हूँ। और बताएं, मैथ का बिजनेस करूंगी, अल्लाह माफ कर। चलिए, मेगा क्वेश्चन वन। A student does a series of experiments to investigate solution R. The student plans on performing a flame test. The color of the flame was lilac. What does this confirm? This confirms that it was a potassium ion is present in solution R. Yeah? Potassium ion is it, because that gives me a lilac color. Lilac flame test. Describe how the flame test is performed. Now, I am going to describe it in very detail. This much detail is not required. जो detail ऊपर given थी वही काफी थी, लेकिन मैं थोड़ा detail में जाऊंगा. देखो हम क्या करते हैं. We are gonna dip a clean nichrome wire, a clean nichrome wire in solution R. ठीक है जी, हमने इसमें डाल दिया. और अब हम फिर क्या करेंगे सर. Place it at the edge, or place it at the or near the edge of the roaring blue flame of the BB of the Bunsen burner, right? And then I'm going to add some few extra things, I'm going to add some few extra things. फिर मैं क्या कहूँगा, observe the flame color, observe the flame color. और इस फ्लेम कलर को सिर्फ ऑब्जर्व नहीं करना, हमें कैसे पता कि इट्स द पोटेशियम आयन, हमें कैसे पता दैट इट्स द पोटेशियम आयन. हाँ, you are going to compare it to known flame colors. Yes, so observe the flame color and compare it to known flame colors. Yeah, compare to known flame colors or check the table to identify the metal ion. To identify the metal ion. इतना डिटेल नहीं चाहिए लेकिन चलो. Why is a clean wire used? हाँ जी. The clean wire is used to remove any contaminations, right? To remove any potential contaminants, to remove any impurities, you could even say. Impurities or contaminations. अच्छा, यूजुअली कौन सी इंप्योरिटी होती है? यूजुअली कौन सी इंप्योरिटी होती है? यूजुअली विच इंप्योरिटीज डू वी हैव? अच्छा, हमें contaminations क्यों हटानी है? Why do we need to remove a contaminations? Because sometimes what happens is, because of contaminations, flame colors can be masked by other colors. You could even say flame colors, so that flame colors are not masked by. Mask मतलब है छुप जाना. Yeah, they're not hidden because of the impurities, by the impurities. Normally, to prevent alterations, जो मर्जी लिखें, ठीक है. अच्छा, normally which impurities do we have? Normally what happens, मैं आपको मजे की बात बताता हूँ, सुनिएगा, ये गौर से सुनिए. Normally होता क्या है, when we have a solution like solution R, we don't perform experiments in a closed container normally, right? What we do is we use open containers. और हमें पता है कि there's carbon dioxide in the air, and sometimes what may happen is that this carbon dioxide can dissolve in solution R to give you carbonate ions, and these carbonate ions potentially cause a lot of problems when we perform different tests. That's why even when we were performing a test for halide ions, we first of all acidified it with dilute nitric acid. Why did we acidify it with dilute nitric acid? To remove any carbonate ions if they were present in that solution, because carbon dioxide dissolves in solutions, they dissolves in liquids, right? So carbon dioxide, when it dissolved in this solution to give you carbonate ions, that's why we needed to add dilute nitric acid when we were testing for halide ions, because we did not want the carbonate ions to mingle with our tests. So you could say to remove impurities, or so that the flame colors are not masked by the impurities and whatnot. Okay? Now the question is, how do you clean a nichrome wire? ये चीजें थोड़ी एक्स्ट्रा हैं, मैं आपको पहले बता रहा हूँ, ये चीजें थोड़ी एक्स्ट्रा है, मैंने बताया लेकिन आपको पता होनी चाहिए. How do you clean it? You dip it in hydrochloric acid, dilute hydrochloric acid में उसको dip करें, and when you dip it in dilute hydrochloric acid, then you start heating it. Then you heat it. Why do we need to heat it? You heat it in the blue flame. Yes, in the blue flame of the Bunsen burner. Yeah, in the blue flame of the BB. And why do you need to heat it? So that कोई भी रंग रुंग हो, कोई positive ion इस पे मौजूद हो, तो वो सारे निकल जाएं इससे, right? All the positive ions. So you're going to heat it until the flame shows no color, until there's no more color, until the flame shows no color. So that's how you clean it. क्योंकि अगर कोई पॉजिटिव आयंस वगैरह हो, कुछ ऐसे हो, तो हम इसको डाइल्यूट हाइड्रोक्लोरिक एसिड में डिप करते हैं ताकि कोई कार्बोनेट निकल जाए, और फिर हम उसको उठा के we place it near the edge of the blue flame, the roaring blue flame of the Bunsen burner, so that if there are any positive metal ions present on this nichrome wire, I don't know from God knows wherever, but if there are any positive ions present, it just the colors are shown, and until no more color change is seen, or until no more color is seen, एक दफा सारा कलर खत्म हो जाए, बस हमारा नाइक्रोम वायर साफ हो गया, डन। अच्छा, हाँ, प्रार्थना ऐसी है। Why use the nichrome wire? Now the question is, why do we use a nichrome? There are multiple reasons why we do it. First of all, it has a high melting point. Nichrome wire has a high melting point, so it does not melt, right? When you heat it, because Bunsen burner has a lot of it produces a lot of heat, so it has a high melting point and can withstand the heat of the Bunsen burner, ठीक है जी। एक और बात भी है कि इट डज नॉट शो कैरेक्टरिस्टिक फ्लेम कलर। अब वो अलग बात है कि आपके कोर्स में नहीं है, बट यू कुड से इट डज नॉट गिव ऑफ ए स्ट्रॉन्ग फ्लेम कलर। इसका अपना कोई फ्लेम कलर नहीं होता, तो अच्छी बात है ना, इट्स नॉट गना मास्क आर कलर्स, सो इट्स नॉट गना मास्क आर कलर्स, आर फ्लेम colors, it does not show any color on its own, so does not शो ए फ्लेम कलर। तो अच्छी बात है, फ्लेम कलर नहीं शो कर रहा तो अच्छी बात है। मैं जो है उसको, इससे मैं जो आयन की वजह से कलर होगा वही होगा, नाइक्रोम वाइन अपना कोई कलर नहीं शो करता और इसीलिए इसको खराब नहीं करेगा है। अच्छा, द थर्ड थिंग है कि रीयूजेबल भी है। You could reuse it, you clean it and reuse it again and again and again. A wooden splint can't be reused again, right? तो wooden splint को आप बार बार कैसे यूज करोगे, वो तो उसका मसला बन सकता है। बट यस, सो ये कुछ रीजंस हैं। खैर, आगे बढ़ते हैं। द स्टूडेंट मेक्स श्योर टू फुली ओपन द एयर होल ऑफ द बंसन बर्नर, सजेस्ट अ रीजन फॉर इट, व्हाई वुड ही फुली ओपन द एयर होल? Well, what happens is when you open the air hole of the Bunsen burner, when you properly open, your teachers should have performed these experiments in class, but since they haven't, चलो मैं कर रहा हूँ। When you हाँ लिख सकते हैं यार कि high melting point जो मर्जी, but when you open the air hole, what you do is you allow more oxygen, you allow excess oxygen to mix with the gas, right? This methane gas or natural gas, whatever. So excess oxygen to mix with gas, and what does this result in? This results in the formation of a non-luminous, luminous की क्या पढ़ेंगे, luminous flame. This results in a non-luminous flame. Non-luminous flame is the blue flame. The roaring blue flame is called a non-luminous flame. हम blue उसको कहते हैं, लेकिन it's very pale blue. So non-luminous, luminous, जो भी spelling है भाई मुझे नहीं आती, spelling सही करे. So it produces a very non-luminous blue flame. Yeah? सही लिखा है मैंने, ठीक है स्पेलिंग, अच्छा। तो ये नॉन लूमिनस ब्लू फ्लेम का क्या मतलब है? इस नॉन लूमिनस ब्लू फ्लेम की वजह से वी कैन सी द कलर्स मोर क्लियरली, सो फ्लेम कलर्स कैन बी सीन मोर क्लियरली। और मजे की बात एक और बताऊं, देखो जो येलो फ्लेम होता है दैट्स लूमिनस, लूमिनस की क्या स्पेलिंग है? लूमिनस। सो द येलो फ्लेम इज लूमिनस। अब ये येलो फ्लेम का मसला है, एक मसला येलो फ्लेम का ये है कि इट्स नॉट हॉट इनफ, इट्स नॉट हॉट इनफ, नंबर वन। नंबर टू इज बिकॉज इट्स नॉट हॉट इनफ, इट रिजल्ट्स इन इनकम्प्लीट कंबस्शन, एंड इनकम्प्लीट कंबस्शन रिजल्ट्स इन सूट फॉर्मेशन। सूट आपको पता है कार्बन है, दैट्स वाई जो आपकी चूल्हों के नीचे येलो फ्लेम होता है ना, बंसन बर्नर आपको येलो फ्लेम देता है, अगर आप एयर होल बंद करो तो बंसन बर्नर खुद एक येलो फ्लेम होता है, इट्स अ लूमिनस फ्लेम। Bunsen, when you open the air hole, it's a roaring blue flame. That's why you need to fully open the air hole, because if you don't fully open the air hole, it's going to give you a luminous flame, which is a yellow flame. The Bunsen burner flame is going to be a yellow flame, right? And this, अगर आपने अपने pans देखे, कभी आपने चूल्हा जलाया और आपके नीचे से pans सारे काले हो जाते हैं, your pans get black from the bottom. Why? Because it's not a very very hot flame. You need to go and sue your governments for it. It's not a very hot flame. A good flame is a non-luminous blue flame which is hot, but this yellow flame, this results in soot, ruins your pans for you even. So this is not hot enough firstly, and it produces soot, and this soot basically can contaminate the nichrome wire. तो ये soot जो है further nichrome wire को हमारा contaminate कर सकता है और आपके कलर्स को मास्क कर सकता है। तो ये दो तीन बातें ये अपने साथ लिख लें। ये टेस्ट नहीं हुई, लेकिन ये सारी आपकी बुक्स में लिखी हुई हैं, तो ये टेस्ट हो सकती है। आज तक नहीं हुई लेकिन हो सकती है। खैर, द स्टूडेंट हैड प्रीवियसली परफॉर्म्ड अ फ्लेम टेस्ट ऑन सॉलिड डी, डिस्क्राइब हाउ द फ्लेम टेस्ट वाज परफॉर्म्ड। अब देखिए सॉलिड के ऊपर फ्लेम टेस्ट परफॉर्म किया, एक सॉलिड डी है उसके ऊपर फ्लेम टेस्ट, तो सॉलिड के ऊपर कैसे करना है? यू कैंट से डिप द नाइक्रोम वाइन इन द सॉल्यूशन, इट्स नो लॉन्गर अ सॉल्यूशन, सॉलिड, सो जस्ट प्लेस द सॉलिड सैंपल, yeah, place the solid sample on the nichrome wire, the solid sample on nichrome wire, and then do the same things, nichrome wire, and then do the same thing. Place it at the edge of the burning, place at the edge of the roaring blue flame of the Bunsen burner. You could even say the non-luminous blue flame, roaring blue flame of the Bunsen burner, and observe the flame color. Done? खत्म. ये सारी फ्लेम कलर की जितने ऑब्जर्वेशंस, जितनी चीजें पूछ सकती थी, ये थी फ्लेम टेस्ट के हवाले से. बस अब आगे जाते. अच्छा जी. The student divided solution R into two. Sir, how to not feel so chill? What do you mean? The student divided solution R into two portions. ठीक है जी. Remember, solution R में कौन सा आयन अभी तक हमने find किया? Which ion have we found अभी तक in solution R? Solution R की बात करें जो बिल्कुल शुरू में था. कौन सा आयन है? देखें, lilac color. राइट हियर लाइलैक. तो सोल्यूशन आर में पोटेशियम आयन मौजूद है, इसलिए ऐसे थोड़ा दिमाग में बात रहनी चाहिए. तो पोटेशियम आयन है इसमें, याद रखिएगा. अब हम नेगेटिव आयन शायद ढूंढने जा रहे हैं. टू द फर्स्ट पोर्शन द स्टूडेंट एड्स एक्सेस डाइल्यूट हाइड्रोक्लोरिक एसिड and concludes that the solution contains carbonate ions. So if it contains carbonate ions, इसका मतलब क्या है कि solution R was basically what? Solution R was potassium ion and carbonate ion. Effectively, what is solution R? Solution ion is potassium carbonate. ऐसी है. Solution R is potassium carbonate. Done. It is. Now he has concluded. उसने conclude कर लिया कि carbonate ion. Describe the test and observation that resulted in this conclusion. Which observation and test resulted in this conclusion? हाँ जी. The test that he would have done is to conclude for carbonate ion. The test that he would have done is that he would have bubbled the gas produced through lime water. Through not effervescence, please. He would have bubbled because effervescence can be produced with any gas being produced, right? So bubble the gas produced through lime water, and the result would have been that the lime water turns milky. अच्छा, why does the lime water turn milky? कभी आपने सोचा है क्या? कभी सोचा? इसलिए because carbon dioxide, it reacts with lime water is calcium hydroxide. So carbon dioxide reacts with calcium hydroxide to give you calcium carbonate and water. So this calcium carbonate is an insoluble white solid. That's why it turns milky, because calcium carbonate solid forms. It's marble chip जिससे ताज महल बना हुआ है. Yeah. Describe one other observation that the student makes when the reaction in 8 part 1 takes place. Acha, can we write the reaction in A part 1? Because we know it's potassium carbonate. Can we write the reaction in A part 1? Hanji. Can we write the reaction in A part 1? Potassium carbonate reacted with what? Reacted with dilute hydrochloric acid. To give you what? Potassium chloride, H2O, and carbon dioxide would form. KCl plus CO2 plus H2O. That's what formed. Right? So what's the other observation? And because he's saying excess dilute hydrochloric acid, this was a solid, yeah, initially. Solid था? अच्छा solution है. अच्छा देखिए गौर से पढ़ें. वो कह रहे एक solution था. So you can't say that the solid disappears. Why can't I say that the solid disappears? Because potassium carbonate is not in the solid form. It's in the form of a solution. But one other observation could be that carbon dioxide is, since carbon dioxide is being produced, a gas when it is being produced in a solution, when there's a solution and a gas is being produced, there are liquid solutions and a gas is being produced. What observation do you get? You get effervescence. You can't say, please, you can't say, or you can say it's fizzing. You can't say that the solid disappears because now it's not a solid. वो ऊपर से क्या है? Solution R है. Solution R. Done. अगर solid होता फिर मैं कहता solid disappears. That's also. If you perform the same test using excess dilute hydrochloric acid on a solid carbonate, on a solid metal carbonate, what observations would you get? First of all, I'd get solid disappearing. I would get, effervescence or fizzing, and I would also get lime water turning milky. It's a 3-mark question. I would also get lime water turning milky by bubbling the gas through lime water. Through lime water. Yeah, like लिखा है lime. Dun 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 tara. Identify solution R. What is solution R? It's potassium carbonate. Potassium carbonate. K2CO3. Yeah, why K2CO3? Potassium is plus, CO3 is 2 minus, cross multiply. Acha. The student adds dilute nitric acid followed by silver nitrate to the product of A part 1. आहा मजे का सवाल है. हाँ, आहा मजे का सवाल है. देखो, nitric acid he's adding and then he's adding silver nitrate. What is this a test for? This is a test for halide ions. Yeah. Now I think to the product of A part 1. What's the product of A part 1? किधर है? A part 1 में बना क्या है? देखिए, that's why I expect you guys to know your equations. That's the product of A part 1. Potassium chloride is the product of A part 1. Yeah. So he's saying उसने potassium chloride डाला है. State the observations if any. So what's the observation if any? अच्छा वैसे ठीक है जी. अच्छा जी. What is the observation if any? You know that because it's potassium chloride, because of the chloride ion is going to come into contact with the silver ion, and it's going to be AgCl solid, right? So avoid precipitate forms. Yeah. And then if 11 में कहे कि write the ionic equation for it. So ionic equation is just the change, right? So what's the change? The silver ion reacts with the chloride ion. Potassium ion is just a spectator ion because it does not take part in the reaction, right? And it gives you AgCl solid. These are aqueous because they are ions and that's a solid, insoluble. Done? ये मजे का सवाल है. ये इसके लिए ये खुद करें. एक पार्ट मैं करूं, फिर खुद करें. अच्छा मजे की बात एक आपको बताऊं. आप लोगों को मजे की बात बताऊं. आओ. ओ गर्दन से कड़ाका निकाले. अच्छा एक मजे की बात बताऊं. See, it says solution F, solution A, solution R, and solution T. Can you guys add that up? I was just thinking about it, and then I got chalo, ये डाल देते थे. Sorry guys, sorry girls, not guys. Guys, disgusting. Fart. It was solution FART. I made it very carefully, you know. So saying, sir, इतनी facial harmony कैसे है भाई मुझे क्या पता. अच्छा solution F है, solution A है, solution R है, and solution T है. The Dumbo Jumbo student knows that these solutions are NaCl, BaSO4, copper nitrate, iron 2 sulfite respectively. Sulfate नहीं है, sulfite है, SO3 2- है. याद रखें ये reducing agent है, right? अच्छा ये बहुत मजे का सवाल है. It'll clarify all your concepts. It's a 15-mark question because why? अच्छा देखिए solution F अगर मैं लिखूं पहले, solution F, solution A, solution R, and solution T, fart, right? So solution A, F, A, R, T. F is what? Respectively, right? So F is NaCl, A or aqueous and सारे solutions हैं. This is BaSO4, barium sulfate. This is copper nitrate, copper 2 nitrate. And this right here is iron 2 sulfite. So FeSO3, right? Iron has a charge of 2 plus and SO3. ये मैंने खुद बनाया ना इसलिए 15 मार्क. अब कहते हैं describe all the tests performed along with observations to confirm that the student is right for all the students. Student ने कहा ये सारे हैं. अब मैंने कहा कि यार इन सब के लिए जितने टेस्ट हैं पॉसिबल लिखो और कंफर्म करो कि क्या हिसाब किताब बनता है, राइट? हाँ बेरियम सल्फेट इज इनसॉल्युबल. सॉरी यार ये सॉलिड कर दो, ये सॉलिड कर दो. सॉलिड बेरियम सल्फेट ये गलत है. सॉलिड है, सॉलिड बेरियम सल्फेट इज सॉलिड है. My bad. That's solution, and this solution solid A. So it's not solution A, it's solid A. Done sir. So this is solid A. अब देखिएगा टिप मैं आपको थॉट प्रोसेस देता हूँ. आई टेल यू द थॉट प्रोसेस. शुक्र है सरसुली एग्जामिनर नहीं है, मैं ऐसे ही सवाल दे देता. खैर थॉट प्रोसेस सुनिएगा. देखिए whenever you are given compounds and solutions or solid, हमेशा isolate them into ions. So I'm going to take sodium chloride and I will isolate it into the sodium ion and the chloride ion. Done? I learned isolation, right? अब मैं दूसरा सवाल पूछूंगा कि what is the test and observation for chloride ion? Acidified with dilute nitric acid followed by silver nitrate and is going to give me a white precipitate. Done? That's the result. What is the test for sodium ion? Positive ions के लिए दो tests हो सकते हैं. Sodium hydroxide and ammonium ion ammonia gas कह रहा हूँ, ammonia aqueous test, which is ammonium hydroxide. So it's either sodium hydroxide and ammonium hydroxide test or it is the flame test. अब sodium ion के लिए we know for sodium ion we know that there's no sodium hydroxide test that's been given in the table and whatnot. So what's the second option? The second option is the flame test. तो इसके लिए flame test करूंगा, ये मेरे पास yellow flame देगा. और इसके लिए क्या करूंगा? dilute nitric acid डालूंगा followed by silver nitrate, or I'm gonna get a white precipitate, and this white precipitate is basically silver chloride which forms, right? Because silver nitrate aqueous, what happens is that you have the silver ion and the nitrate ion, and when you add, if you have the chloride ion present, it'll just precipitate. Silver chlorides are insoluble. Acidify it with dilute nitric acid. Yes, अच्छा, तो similarly इन सब का ऐसे क्या करना है, इन सबको डाइसेक्ट करें बेरियम 2+ में और सल्फेट 2- में। अब इसका टेस्ट भी आपको पता है, इसका टेस्ट भी आपको पता है। सिमिलरली कॉपर 2+ में और नाइट्रेट आयन में, इसका टेस्ट भी आपको पता है, विच इज व्हाट, sodium hydroxide and warm. That's wrong. Sodium hydroxide and warm is just for the ammonium ion. Sodium hydroxide and warm is for the ammonium ion. You also need to add aluminum foil to it. Done? And then that's the test for nitrate. Ammonia gas is being produced, and this gas is further tested. How do you test? Tested with a damp red litmus paper, turns blue, blah blah blah. Copper 2+ के लिए दो कहानियां हो सकती हैं। इसके लिए तो बेरियम 2+ के लिए तो फ्लेम टेस्ट है ना, लाइट ब्लू फ्लेम, light green flame, sorry. And for sulfate ion, again, add acidified with dilute nitric acid, and then add silver nitrate to it, and it's going to give you a white precipitate of barium sulfate. Add aluminum before or after. पहले aluminum add करें फिर warm करें ना, aluminum foil के साथ ही warm करना है. So sodium hydroxide, add aluminum foil to it, and then warm it together. अच्छा, copper 2+ ions. अब copper 2+ ions के लिए दो तरीके हो सकते हैं, या तो flame test करूं तो it's gonna give me what, a blue green flame, और या तो मैं सोडियम हाइड्रोक्साइड या अमोनिया एक्वस के साथ करूं, एक्वस अमोनिया, राइट? सिमिलरली इधर भी अच्छा इस केस में, और आयरन सल्फाइड, सो Fe2+ है एंड SO3 2- है। सो आयरन के लिए आई कुड परफॉर्म वन टेस्ट विच इज आइदर सोडियम हाइड्रोक्साइड और अमोनिया एक्वस, aqueous sodium monoxide or aqueous ammonia. And sulfite के लिए it's a reducing agent. You've been given the test in your table, that's acidified aqueous potassium manganate, which will go from purple to colorless. कितना आसान था ये, 15 मार्क का सवाल था। This is just copying table data. You guys are lucky that you have been given tables. और फिर भी इसमें आप गलत कर लेते हैं, तो ये तो अफसोस की बात है। हमारे टाइम में टेबल नहीं होता था, हमारे टाइम में सारे हमें याद होने चाहिए थे, और पता नहीं कैसे मैंने तो ऐसे याद करवाए थे अपने स्टूडेंट्स को, रॉ एक बेव वॉरियर। तो ये 15 मार्क्स मुफ्त के थे। अब आ जाएं असली बात पे। ये 15 मार्क्स अगर आपने करने हैं तो ये सारा खुद एक एक उसके तौर पे कर सकते हैं। मेगा क्वेश्चन 3, दिस इज अ ब्यूटीफुल क्वेश्चन दैट आई हैव मेड, and we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we're going to do mega question 3, and that'll be the end of the session. Half of ATP is copying the table. To be honest, yes. सर मेरी kinetic energy कम हो गई है, very slow rate of reaction. अल्लाह खैर करेंगे यार, अभी तो आप जवान हो, अभी तो मैं जवान हूँ। इसके बाद क्वेश्चन नंबर 3 गलत नहीं होना चाहिए। मैंने आपको थॉट प्रोसेस दे दिया, आप बैठ के प्रैक्टिस शुरू कर दें। क्वेश्चन 3 आज आप सारी रात बैठे या सुबह सवेरे जाके सिट अर्ली इन द मॉर्निंग फॉर क्वेश्चन नंबर 3 एंड जस्ट गो ऑन, ठक 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 सवाल करें। सर आई सॉल्व योर बुकलेट P2 के लिए, हेल्प मी अलॉट, थैंक यू सो मच, वेलकम किडो। सर आप बहुत अच्छे फ्रेंड निकले। सर आपने देखा हेटर्स नैनो में देखा है या सारा जहान है, ये क्या कहना चाह रहे हैं? सर व्हेन विल यू टीच सेपरेशन ऑफ सॉल्ट्स? हाँ वो क्वेश्चन 1 में आ सकता है। आई हैव टॉट सेपरेशन ऑफ सॉल्ट्स, एक्सपेरिमेंटल टेक्निक, ये तो बहुत सिंपल है ना, एक्सपेरिमेंटल टेक्निक्स जो हैं, सेपरेशन ऑफ सॉल्ट्स। अच्छा आप क्वेश्चन 4 की बात करें, सॉल्ट प्रिपरेशन की अगर बात करें तो वो हम करेंगे ना इंशाल्लाह, कल करेंगे। आई पोस्ट दिस ऑन टू यूट्यूब। क्वेश्चन नंबर 3 खत्म हो गया मेरी तरफ से, क्वेश्चन 3 खत्म। अब आप अपने ये सवाल करने के बाद मेरी तरफ से क्वेश्चन 3 मुकम्मल तौर पे खत्म। अब क्वेश्चंस करने लग जाए आराम से, क्वेश्चन मेरी बुकलेट से कर लें अगर करने हैं तो। मेरी बुकलेट मिस नूर कैन गिव इट टू यू, और उसकी मार्किंग स्कीम तो जाहिर सी बात है वो। सरसुली को कभी नहीं भूलूंगी मैं, अभी तो मैं जवान हूँ, अभी तो मैं जवान हूँ, या यार भूख लग गई है यार, ओ कल तो छुट्टी है। तेरे प्यार में दिल हार के मैंने क्या पाया, क्या गवाया, तेरी यादें, वो सारी बातें। ओहो मैं तो वो काविश निकल रहा हूँ। तू ही you know I used to follow Kavish when he only had 7,000 subscribers on YouTube, only 7,000। और अब माशाल्लाह देखें तो मेहनत जो है और अच्छी आवाज हो, मेहनत हो तो बंदा बहुत आगे जाता है। तू ही बता कैसे भुलाऊं, किससे कहूँ ऐ बेवफा, दिल किस तरह है टूटा मेरा. Thank you, Avinish. Yes, the situation here is absolutely, it's a little topsy-turvy, but Alhamdulillah, it's fine. Thank you very much, kiddo. I hope everything's fine at your end too, हाँ. और गवर्नमेंट्स ने हम सबको पागल बनाया हुआ है. The people stand together with each other. We are all the same. गवर्नमेंट्स ही हैं अपने मफाद के लिए लड़ रही हैं, but we all love each other. I have so many Indian friends, a lot of Indian friends. I have a lot of Hindu friends as well. I have a lot of friends. So yeah, and nobody's buying it. To be honest, even Indians aren't buying it, and even Pakistanis aren't buying it. It's just, और कुछ नहीं बोलूंगा, काला डाला आ जाने मुझे बाहर पिक कर लेगा. So it's just a fight between governments, to be honest. हाय. या अच्छा, दो दो 10 o'clock पे शुरू करते हैं यार ये सवाल. 10 p.m. पे शुरू करते हैं ये सवाल. इल बी अपलोडेड, डोंट वरी. हाय अभी, हाँ व्हाट्सअप. 10 p.m. पे करते हैं शुरू, 5 मिनट बाद, हाँ. और नहीं, अल्लाह खैर करेंगे, चिल करेंगे. आप अपनी तैयारी पूरी करें, बाकी अल्लाह के हाथ में. अच्छा, मैं आर्मी वाले नहीं हूँ आयशा, किसने कहा है? काला डाला मेरा अपना है, आर्मी का किधर से आ गया? ओ रे साजना, गाना गाऊं? सुरसाल पसरका पमकिस पानी रवानशा, zakka na 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 zakka khiramanasha. या गुलदे पर जुल्फो बांधे कतार दी, गुलदे पर जुल्फो बांधे कतार दी, त्वाना चश्मा दे महबूबा गुल्द अनार दी, तोबा तोबा. खुश. दिस मीन्स, ये इन्होंने कहा कि ट्रांसलेशन नूर इज कि बेसिकली द गाय इज इन लव विद अ गर्ल एंड ही इज सेइंग दैट योर द फ्लावर्स ऑन योर हेयर आर इन सच एन ऑर्डरली मैनर, एंड योर आईज आर जस्ट लाइक फ्लावर्स ऑफ pomegranate and whatnot, because apparently flowers of pomegranate are considered to be one of the most beautiful flowers. I don't know. That gives me astaghfirullah eyes. That is astaghfirullah eyes. Yeah. देखा एक ख्वाब तो ये सिलसिले हुए, दूर तक निगाह में है गुल खिले हुए, ये गिलाही आपकी निगाहों से, फूल भी हो दरमिया तो फासले हुए, ला 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 ला. बस लता मंगेशकर स्टाइल, हाँ. वो यार बड़ा हाई पिच है. अभी सिंह सर प्लीज द पश्तो सॉन्ग ब्रेक द चिल. بريك داتشي لوزنا ددرو غدير اختياكم تراتا سبا سبا كوازب بيغاكرم تراتا سبا سبا كوازب بيغاكرم بريك داتشي لوزنا. Yeah, Khush. Said you teach A levels. I will start teaching once again. I will come into the market and with all that adrenaline rush, I will make sure कि कुछ लोगों की दुकानें बंद हो जाएं इंशाल्लाह. A level chemistry is very easy if you study from me. It's just a whole new level. It's a different ball game. कुछ नहीं होता यार. हैं? सर वेडिंग इनविटेशन देंगे ना, कुछ जब होगी दे दूंगा यार, सब आ जाना. पेशावर जो आ सकता है आ जाना. इस्लाम एक शादी, मतलब एक शादी का इवेंट पेशावर में कर लेंगे, वही इवेंट फिर इस्लामाबाद में भी कर लेंगे, वही इवेंट फिर कराची, लाहौर, इस्लामाबाद, हर जगह वो एक इवेंट दोबारा रिक्रिएट कर लेंगे हैं आप लोगों के लिए. जब हो जाए तो कर लेंगे ना यार, अभी तो बहुत टाइम है. आई एम नॉट गेटिंग मैरिड अविनेश, दिस जस्ट स्पेकुलेशन, इट्स जस्ट स्पेकुलेशन. सर आस्किंग फॉर अ फ्रेंड इफ इट्स ओके दैट ब्लैक एंड, सर रजब भट्ट टाइप शादी होनी चाहिए? ओ नहीं नहीं नहीं, बड़ी मिनिमल, आराम से सिंपल। यार हम पैसे जो है ट्रैवल पे क्यों ना लगाएं कि शादी पे लोगों को दिखाने के लिए पैसे उड़ाएं, ट्रैवल पे लगाएं भाई। दुनिया घूमेंगे, कोई साल में छुट्टी करूंगा, फिर साल में दुनिया घूमूंगा। साल में वैसे भी कुछ मुल्क गया हूँ, लेकिन साल में माशाल्लाह इंशाल्लाह जाऊंगा अपना, ट्रैवल करूंगा। कीप इट, go to Dubai. I've been to Dubai, but Dubai is not a place for couples to go. Dubai is a place for bachelors to go, huh? Yeah, very amir people to go. My age, I'm ageless. छोड़ दो यार मेरी उम्र। सर बासित और सर अली के साथ मैं बैठा होता हूँ, लोग कहते हैं सर आप तो उनकी भी स्टूडेंट लगते हैं। तो अब मैं क्या करूँ, अल्लाह ताला ने माशाल्लाह जवान शक्ल दी, अब मैं क्या करूँ, जबरदस्ती दाढ़ी छोड़ूं, बुढ़ा हो जाऊं? हैं? चलो जी, 10 बज गए। A student performs certain tests on certain solids. Answer all the relevant questions for each of the solid slash solution. Solid D is a single compound. A student divides, it's a single compound. We need to be careful, so it must have a cation and an anion, one positive ion and a negative ion. To the first portion, the student adds sodium hydroxide drop by drop. He observes a white precipitate forming. What possible ions may be present in solid D? So when he adds NaOH drop by drop, that confirms that, if it's a white precipitate, that confirms that it's aluminum ion, calcium ion, and zinc ion. Zinc मैं पहले लिख लेता हूँ. So these can be the three potential ions, zinc ion and the calcium 2 plus, because you know that they give you white PPTs. Done. So yeah, that says to the same portion right here, to the same portion, the student adds NaOH in excess. And you observe that the white precipitate remains. See, that's the observation. That's what he sees with his naked eye. Not saying it's insoluble. No, what he observes means what he sees with his naked eye. And what do I see? I see that the white precipitate remains. Which means what? We know that these two, in excess sodium hydroxide, these two are soluble. And if the white precipitate remains, that means it's the calcium 2 plus ion. So this confirms that it's the calcium 2 plus ion. आसान है? अच्छा, to the second portion, the student adds dilute acid to solid D and concludes that carbonate ions are present. Now, be careful here. See, he's adding solid D. We know that solid D has calcium 2 plus ions. And now he's saying that the carbonate ion is present, which means that solid D is calcium carbonate. Done, sir. Solid D is calcium carbonate. Write all the observations. Write all the observations along with how the student confirmed the carbonate ion, and this is basically a 4-mark question maybe. So what are all the observations? For all the observations, let me first write the equation. So calcium carbonate must have reacted with dilute acid, let's say dilute hydrochloric acid, right? So it's going to form calcium chloride aqueous, it's going to form H2O, is going to form carbon dioxide. Yeah, we need to know this. Now, what are all the observations? See, it's excess dilute acid. So excess dilute acid means that this solid would disappear. The solid disappears. Number two is what? Number two is that I also see effervescence right here. Effervescence or bubbling. That will give me 2 marks. Yeah. But he is saying that along with how the student confirmed for the presence of carbonate ion, now we need to talk about how he confirmed the presence of carbonate ion. How? This will give me 2 marks. What? That he basically, the lime water turned milky. And why did it turn milky? What test did he perform? Upon bubbling, the gas produced through it. So this gives me 2 marks. लिटमस का कार्बोनेट के साथ किधर वास्ता आ गया है? खदीजा क्या हो गया? रेड लिटमस क्यों? बस लाइम वाटर टर्न मिल्की. लाइम वाटर टर्न मिल्की, दैट्स द कंफर्मेटरी टेस्ट. तो ये सिर्फ कार्बोनेट के साथ ही हो सकता है. आओ, this is easy. That's awesome. The student divides the solution formed in 3.0 into 2. अब ये 3.0 है, इसमें जो सोल्यूशन बना है, कौन सा सोल्यूशन बना है, इसलिए मैं कहता हूं इक्वेशन लिखा करें जब मौका मिले. ज्यादातर टाइम we aren't able to write the equation because we don't know most of the times, but when we have information we can also write the equation. So now सर जब रिएक्शन हो तो कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड रिलीज होगी तो लिटमस. नो, बट खदीजा रियलाइज दैट व्हाट इफ इट वाजंट, it was another acidic gas being produced, maybe with the sulfite ion sulfur dioxide was being produced, that also turns the blue litmus paper red. So carbonate ki specifically test khadija is what? It's to bubble it through lime water, huh? Acha, so 3.2 mein jo bana hai, write this thing right here, the calcium chloride. So he's saying that he's going to take calcium chloride and portion to the and divide it into two portions, right? Because he probably wants to perform two tests on it. He's saying he adds dilute acid, nitric acid, followed by barium nitrate aqueous. What is this a test for? This is a test for sulfate ion. And is there any sulfate ion present? Describe the observations, if any. Is there any sulfate ion present? Is there any sulfate? It's calcium chloride. Where is the sulfate ion? Agar aap keh rahe hain, haan. There's no sulfate ion present. So what is the test? What is the observation? There is no change. No observation. You don't write no observation, just say there's no change. Right? Then it says to the second portion, he adds dilute nitric acid followed by silver nitrate. This is now a test for halide ion. Barium nitrate, test for sulfate ion. Silver nitrate, test for halide ion, right? Now he's saying, describe any observations. Is there going to be an observation? You know that it's calcium chloride. Because of a chloride ion, Cl1 minus ion is present. So what should the observation be? A white precipitate forms, because the silver ion is going to come into contact with the chloride ion and is going to form ए वाइट प्रेसिपिटेट. देखिए मैंने आपको सारा करवा दिया, इसके अलावा आइडेंटिफिकेशन ऑफ आयंस में कुछ भी नहीं आ सकता है कसम से. अब क्वेश्चन नंबर 3 देखें, पूरे सालों के कर लें. क्वेश्चन नंबर 3 अब करते जाए until and unless you have a proper grip on it. ठीक है. Write the ionic equation for 5.0. I've already written it. What is the ionic equation? The silver ion comes into contact with the chloride ion, gives me silver chloride. What if he says, right, okay, this has never been asked, but what if he says, write the full equation? Write the full equation. What's the full equation? Add the, you could say it needs to be acidified, right? Add, acidify it with nitric acid. You would say acidify it with nitric acid. Acha, what if he said, write the full equation? The full equation kya hai? You have calcium chloride right here, calcium chloride, and you react it with what? Silver nitrate. That's what I'm doing. That's effectively the full equation. So calcium chloride plus silver nitrate. What's happening? The silver ion and the chloride ion, they're going to precipitate to form AgCl, solid. And what's left behind? Calcium nitrate is left behind, right? That's aqueous. They don't react. Mention it, कोई नहीं, फर्क नहीं पड़ता. So that's the full equation. So if they ever ask the full equation, ये full equation यही हुआ. देखो, और how are you able to write? देखो, जब दो aqueous salts आपके पास हो, what I do, I'll tell you what I do. If you have two aqueous salts, what I tell you is that break them into ions. If they're two, and now look into them कि यार इसमें कोई solid बन सकता है? Yes, silver chloride can form. So what's left behind? Calcium nitrate aqueous. Why is it NO2, NO3 whole twice? Because calcium has a charge of 2 plus, NO is 1 minus. So for one calcium ion, you need two nitrate ions, or you could say cross multiply. Sursal pasarka pamakisbani ravanasha. अच्छा, solid E की बात करें. Solid E and solid G. Solid E की बात करते हैं. Add sodium hydroxide dropwise. He observes a white precipitate forming. What possible ions may be present in D? So aluminum ion, zinc ion, and calcium ion. These give me white precipitate. These are the possibilities. Achha, the student adds NaOH in excess. He observes that the white precipitate dissolves to form a colorless solution. What possible ions may be present now? Bole. Bolo. Hey, क्या बोलती तू? Sir, in the group they are making stickers instead of studying. कोई नहीं. अच्छा, so it's not going to be the calcium ion now. ऊपर तो हाँ, these are the three possibilities above. But now here it further clarified that now the two possibilities are the aluminum ion and the zinc ion, because the calcium 2 plus ion is going to remain insoluble. It's going to remain as the white precipitate, right? They're going to dissolve. अच्छा, the student can't figure out whether the student कैसी अंग्रेजी लिखी मैंने. The student can't figure out which of the two ions is present. Which test should he perform to figure out which ion is present? So now he can't figure out between the aluminum ion and the zinc ion. He can't figure out. हाँ, सारे आसान इब्राहिम, बस ना अब तो पढ़ा दिया. Yes, Diksha is absolutely right. Diksha is saying, sir, we know that the only difference between aluminum ion and zinc ion is when you add excess ammonia. Because when you add excess ammonia, you'll realize that this munafiq right here, this guy becomes insoluble in excess ammonia, and this guy remains soluble. So we are going to add excess ammonia, and if white precipitate remains, insoluble का क्या मतलब है? If the white precipitate remains, it's the aluminum 3 plus ion. And if it's soluble का क्या मतलब है? If white precipitate, आपने ये नहीं लिखना कि if it's soluble, आपने description लिखनी है. If white precipitate dissolves, इसलिए तो बच्चों के मार्क्स कटते हैं ना यार. White precipitate dissolve to give colorless solution. You are not going to write soluble, colorless solution. Soluble is what this entire thing means, right? So, sir, if white precipitate dissolves to give a colorless solution, that's going to be the zinc 2 plus ion. Padam? आसान सर यू आर पाकिस्तानी एसआर के मेरे दोस्त मुझे कहते हैं जब आप शाहरुख खान ऑर्डर करो ना लेकिन दराज से थोड़ा सस्ते में फिर सुली खान बनता है अल्लाह माफ करे solution G so that's how he's gonna dictate or he's gonna identify अच्छा ओ मेरे जहन में एक और बात भी याद आ गई एक सेकंड यार ओए ये क्या कर रहा है तेरी खैर ये दो दफा अच्छा ये तो बाकी सवाल है खैर खैर अच्छा अ, एक और बात मुझे याद आ गई वो मैं जरा एंड में लिखूं एंड ब्रोमाइड एंड पी ये जरा एंड में ये एक सवाल पूछा जाता है तो ये भी एंड में जरा देखते हैं A student adds few drops of up so solution G की बारी आ गई ईस्ट और वेस्ट यू आर द बेस्ट थैंक्स सानिया सर आई लव यू हैशटैग नो आई लव यू टू ऐसे इफ यू लव मी देन आई लव यू टू when does the class end in the next 10 minutes yes love you as a brother is fine yes a student adds a few drops of sodium hydroxide to solid G मतलब सुलेमान खान कैसे सवाल बने ऊपर solution G लिखा है इधर solid G लिखा है solution G कर लें A green precipitate forms. Identify the possible ions. So a few drops ke sath, if a green precipitate forms, what are the ions? It's either the chromium 3 plus ion or the iron 2 plus ion. That's it. That's awesome. Acha. Write two ways to figure out which of these two ions are present. Now, chromium 3 plus ion and the iron 2 plus ions, they're very similar to each other, yeah? Because what happens is if you add sodium hydroxide, it's green and green, but in excess sodium hydroxide, this becomes soluble and remains insoluble. Soluble means what? The green precipitate dissolves to give you a green solution. Insoluble means what? The green precipitate remains. Yeah. And then if I use excess aqueous ammonia, they're both the same. That's green, green. And if I use excess of aqueous ammonia, a few drops would give me green, green, and excess would both give me insoluble and insoluble. So which method could I use to differentiate between the two? Whether it's the chromium 3 plus ion or the iron 2 plus ion? Yeah. Actually, tests for gases haven't been tested in a long time. So also know the test for gases. Chlorine bleaches the damp litmus paper and whatnot. Fatma, wait a second. Don't raise your hand because then my face is gonna not not come in the video. Your hand is also gonna show in the video. अच्छा मेरा एक सवाल है what two ways way number one बताएं जी way number one is easy and way number two I'll tell you way number one what's way number one can you give a side eye उसमें मेरी आंख की खैर वो अच्छा अल्लाह माफ करे हमारा एक दोस्त था तो हम अभी भी है बड़ा अच्छा दोस्त है हमारा तो वो ना हम जब वो लेवल्स में होते थे ना तो वो ऐसी पिक्चर पे पोस्ट करता था मतलब अभी शायद वो ये वीडियो देखे ना देखे पता नहीं लेकिन वो हम जब वो लेवल्स में थे ना वो ऐसी पिक्चर पोस्ट करता और नीचे का उसमें लिखा होता था डिस्क्रिप्शन में लिखा होता इन द डिस्क्रिप्शन ही यूज्ड टू राइट ही यूज्ड टू जस्ट डू दिस एंड इन द डिस्क्रिप्शन ही यूज्ड टू राइट नेक्स्ट पीएम ऑफ पाकिस्तान इनकमिंग हॉट तो हम उसका बड़ा मजाक उड़ाते थे यार अल्लाह करे बन जाए लेकिन अब खुद एसीसीए कर रहे हैं अब नेक्स्ट इनकमिंग पीएम कैसे शायद कुछ पता नहीं चलता यार हम उसको वैसे छेड़ते थे वो जो है ना तस्वीर पे ऐसे मैंने कहा था यार तू पीएम भी अगर बन गया तू यूं तो नहीं करेगा वो यूं करता था हर तस्वीर में उसकी एक आईब्रो ऊपर होता था एक नीचे होता था सॉरी सॉरी मैं यूएस बन अच्छा व्हाट इज वे वन यार कम ऑन आई मिस द कैन आई गेट अ गुची इन द चैट बॉक्स अच्छा पहले ये तो बताएं What is way number one? How do you differentiate between the two? Shabash. Way number one is add excess NaOH, right? And if it dissolves to give you a green solution, aka it's soluble, आपने यही लिखना है आपने soluble का लफ्ज नहीं लिखना है you're going to say dissolves to give a green solution then it's the chromium 3 plus ion and if the green PPT remains then it's the Fe2 plus ion but there's also method number two. What is method number two? Hanji, yeah, pata lage. This was the catch here. What is way number two? Flame test. Iron और chromium के लिए कैडी flame test है. हाँ जी, अब बताएं सिलेबस में कैडी फ्लेम टेस्ट है आयरन और क्रोमियम के लिए, बताएं जी। और दूसरा तरीका, aqueous ammonia, Pratna, you are almost close. But you might realize that with aqueous ammonia, it's the same. If you add few drops or even if you add excess, it's Aisha, absolutely correct. Aisha, ₹2 इनाम हो गया मेरी तरफ से. Aisha is saying, sir, if I add aqueous ammonia excess or even if I add excess sodium hydroxide, what I'll realize is that iron 2 plus will turn brown near the surface on standing. So I'm going to say, hey, way number 2 is I could also add excess NH3 to it, and then if turns brown near the surface on standing, तो ये आज तक टेस्ट नहीं हुआ, ये वाला कॉन्सेप्ट टेस्ट नहीं हुआ surface on standing. So if it turns brown near the surface on standing, then it's the Fe2 plus ions. मतलब भी समझा दे, मतलब ये है कि यार जैसे आप एप्पल को बाइट करते हैं, when you bite apple it's Fe2 plus, but after some times when you leave the apple to stand, after some time it turns brown. So that's what it means, near the surface, because top पे usually होता है ना. So वैसे 2025 papers keep testing new stuff never seen in past papers. So that's good, Shamin. It's good. They're testing, logical things which teachers should have taught you. अच्छा, ये क्लोराइड ब्रोमाइन और आयोडाइड की एक बात है और पी की एक बात है. ये एक सवाल एक दफा टेस्ट हुआ था और बच्चे इसको ना कंफ्यूज कर जाते हैं. देखिए वो कहते हैं कि a student performs the halide test on P, but he cannot differentiate whether it has the chloride ion or the bromide ion. And practically, it happens. There's this substance P, substance P, and he performed the halide test, aka he added dilute nitric acid and he followed it by silver nitrate, right? You could use bullet points absolutely. In biophysics too, every question you could use. Acha, so halide ki testing हुई or he realized that he can't figure out whether it's chloride or bromide. And let me tell you something, practically even you can't figure out, because chloride is white and bromide is cream, so they're very similar, and even the iodide yellow precipitate is very pale yellow precipitate, so you can't figure it out like this, right? So हम A levels में एक टेस्ट सीखते हैं, वो O levels में नहीं सिखाया जाता, तो वो टेस्ट भूल जाए. एक्वस अमोनिया के साथ एक टेस्ट सीखते हैं, वो A levels में पढ़ेंगे कि प्रैक्टिकली क्या होता है. But now, because we are in O levels, we don't know what happens practically. But you need to still figure out whether it's the chloride ion or the bromide ion. You can't figure out because you are confused whether it's cream or white. You can't differentiate between the two. Then what you need to do is perform the halide test here and perform the halide test here and literally just compare it. That's it. So perform, yes, Aisha is absolutely right. Perform a halide test, as in acidify solution A. Let's suppose this solution A and that's solution B, right? So acidify solution A with nitric acid followed by silver nitrate. Acidify solution B with nitric acid followed by silver nitrate. And compare the precipitate formed with P to figure out whether it's the chloride ion or the bromide ion. So this came in 2024. Oh, we did this in the past paper session. Oh yes, I forgot, but yes. So this is all you need to know about the tests for the identification of ions. अब अगर आप practice करने लग जाए, देखिए एक चीज मैं आपको बताऊं, even though you have the table, you need to still know some things like these, because if you don't know all the reasons behind why you're using ammonium ion, why you're using sodium hydroxide and warm, you won't be able to write this equation which is a part of your course. तो इसके बाद आपसे हर सवाल होना चाहिए. देखिए आसान सी बात है, मैं अगर आपको सिर्फ दिखाऊं, द क्वेश्चंस दैट वी स्किप्ड, अगर मैं सिर्फ आपको दिखाऊं ना, बड़ा सिंपल है. देखिए अब देखिए, अगर मैं इसको देखूं, देखिए वो कह रहे हैं डू अ फ्लेम टेस्ट ऑफ सॉरी लाइट ग्रीन फ्लेम. व्हाट इज अ लाइट ग्रीन फ्लेम? What is a light green flame? Is the barium 2 plus ion. Dissolve it in water and to form solution 4 portions, because you add dilute sulfuric acid, white precipitate. Sulfuric acid contains what? The hydrogen ion and the sulfate ion. So it gives you white precipitate that further confirms that it had the barium 2 plus ion, because barium sulfate gives you a white precipitate. कितना आसान है, And to the second portion of N, add this followed by silver nitrate. So if silver nitrate, you get a pale yellow precipitate, which means what? That you also have the iodide ion. So you have the iodide ion, and this you also have the barium 2 plus ion. Remember, you don't have the sulfate ion in solid N. You used it to further confirm that the barium 2 plus ion is present, but it's a part of sulfuric acid, not it's not a part of this compound, but barium ion and iodide ion are present. Then to the third portion, add a few drops of aqueous barium nitrate. What is this a test for? A test for sulfate ion. And since there's no visible change, so there are no sulfate ions. To the fourth portion of solution, add about aqueous chlorine. That's a good question. So if you add aqueous chlorine, now you know what is your compound. Your compound is barium iodide. So when you add aqueous chlorine to barium iodide, it's literally a displacement reaction. You know that the more reactive halogen displaces the less reactive halogen from its salt solution. So you're going to get barium chloride here, and you're going to get I2 aqueous, and this I2 aqueous is brown. So it further confirms the fact that you have the iodide ion. This further confirms the fact that you have the iodide ion. Please, the compound is barium iodide. This sulfuric acid, when you added it to it, it confirmed कि यार हाँ barium 2 plus ही है because a white precipitate formed. Then similarly, when you found out that it's the iodide ion, to further देखो examiner ये सवाल भी पूछ सकता है, what is a further confirmation for the iodide ion? You could react it with chlorine, and if it turns brown, that's further confirming the fact that it's the iodide ion, because the iodide ion was the iodine from, the I1 minus was being displaced to form iodine brown solution. Yeah, we are live in stereo. Yes, Taimur, कल भी क्लास लूंगा, सबर तो करो ना. कल मैं experiments के क्लास करूंगा, all the different type of experiments that can come in your course. Sir, if it says add silver nitrate and does not mention acid, do we write no change? Sorry, repeating it. No, you still perform unless you then read the question. Question में उसने एक दफा लिखा हुआ था ऐसे कि this test will only work if you add something else as well. So what is something else that you add? You will also acidify it with nitric acid, and you're not going to say no change. You're just going to say, it's incomplete. बट you'll write the change. जो भी हो आप उसको पूरा लिखे. सिर्फ अगर सिल्वर नाइट्रेट भी लिखा हो, he's gonna give you clues in the question later on. He's gonna say, oh, ऊपर वाला का आंसर जो आपने लिखा है वो ठीक है, लेकिन एक चीज मिसिंग है. क्या चीज मिसिंग है? Something like this, Missed you too, Mariam. Sir, will the recording be uploaded onto Zoom, onto YouTube? Absolutely, Zores. I'll upload it. Lekin that's beauty, guys. How to carry out flame test, identify solid N, what is solid N, barium iodide, pretty easy. Pretty easy stuff. अब देखो M and N है, ये क्रोमियम है, नाइट्रेट का क्या टेस्ट है? सोडियम हाइड्रोक्साइड, वार्म, एल्यूमिनियम फॉयल एंड वार्म. सोडियम हाइड्रोक्साइड, एल्यूमिनियम फॉयल, वार्म. Chromium ion, it's how do you differentiate between the iron 2 plus and the chromium 3 plus? You add sodium hydroxide, green precipitate, and in excess this will dissolve to form a green solution. And it says same thing. Okay, the student holds anhydrous cobalt chloride paper at the mouth of the boiling tube. वो solid M को उसने heat किया strongly. If he heated it strongly, it's saying it's hydrated, so the water of crystallization will leave. And if the water evaporates and you use anhydrous cobalt chloride, it's going to go pink. Yeah, it goes from blue to pink. Sir, can ATP compensate marks lost in theory? Absolutely. Similarly, देखो, inserts a glowing splint into the mouth of the tube. The splint bursts into flames. So you need to know the test for gases too. Glowing splint. देखो, lighted splint और glowing splint में क्या फर्क है? Lighted splint, अच्छा खैर glowing splint लिखा हुआ है. Lighted splint क्या होता है कि आप माचिस जलाते हैं. माचिस जो जल रहा माचिस होता है उसको lighted splint कहते हैं, and you use it for the test for hydrogen, right? So you light a splint which is माचिस जला रहा है, and if hydrogen gas is there, it's going to give you a pop sound because there's a mini explosion that takes place. लेकिन अगर आप एक बड़े हाइड्रोजन के कंटेनर के साथ माचिस जलाएं, lighted splint लें, तो it's not going to be a pop sound, it's going to be a boom sound, and you're probably going to die. Right? And then if you have a glowing splint क्या होता है? You match up, you light a match and then you blow it, right? So you're gonna light a match, माचिस की तीली जलाएं, and then you blow it. That's a glowing splint. When it glows, that's called a glowing splint. And if there's oxygen pattern, oxygen helps in burning, so it's gonna relight the glowing splint. Chingari नहीं, glowing splint is just like chup. That's the glowing splint. So that's how you need to visualize it. So you'll never forget कि यार हाइड्रोजन के लिए लाइटेड स्प्लिंट होता है, माचिस जलानी होती है, और आपका जो है ऑक्सीजन के लिए just glowing splint because oxygen helps in burning, it'll relight it. But it's given in the table. Sir, Pakistani Zain Malik's vibes with the hair strand. Oh यार मेरे सारी जिंदगी ये बाल नीचे गिर जाता है. It's called a cowlick, I guess. Oxygen has O and glowing also has O. Ooh, Shamin, that's good ritualization. Ritualization is not the best qualification to take first position in the CAIE examination. वैसे आजकल तो CAIE has lost it. To be honest, it's pathetic. I couldn't care less. If it comes to boycotting it with students, I will stand with my students because my bread and butter does not depend on it. And even if it did, I would take, a huge stand with my students, and I'd boycott it throughout Pakistan and start opting for a better board, which is probably a Pearson and Excel. So Pearson and Excel is much better than Cambridge. वैसे Cambridge is more internationally recognized. Even Pearson and Excel is internationally, but the conceptually speaking, Pearson and Excel is more advanced and has more things to it. लेकिन अगर मैं मेरे से आप ए लेवल्स पढ़ोगे तो मैं ए लेवल्स में सब कुछ पढ़ाऊंगा. ए लेवल्स में आई टीच पीएसएन एंड एक्सेल, ए क्यू ए, सी ए आई ई, बिकॉज ए लेवल्स इज अ डिफरेंट बॉल गेम, बिकॉज आई वांट टू मेक यू गाइस इनटू अ साइंटिस्ट. हाँ, इवन मैटिक डजंट. तो अगर जो बच्चा में से ए लेवल्स पढ़े तो उसको मैं पीएसएन एंड एक्सेल की नॉलेज भी दूंगा, क्योंकि मेरा मेन गोल ये है कि आपको मैं साइंटिस्ट बनाऊं, कोई ना कोई. मैं ए लेवल पढ़ाई है, 2 बैचेस किए थे, सबके एज और ए स्टार्स आए थे, फिर उसके बाद मैंने छोड़ दिया था, टाइम गया ना. सर आज मैं अपना कैंडिडेट नंबर गलत लिख दिया था पेपर में, एम्बैरेसिंग मोमेंट, आई वाज कॉल्ड आउट आफ्टर द एग्जाम सबके सामने. इट्स ओके. हाउ ओल्ड आर यू? आई एम ओल्ड इनफ नम्रा. बस मैं ए लेवल्स कभी ना पढ़ा था, टू बी ऑनेस्ट. आई डोंट हैव द टाइम. आई हैव माय अदर ऑब्लिगेशंस दैट आई हैव टू cater to. आई एम अ फाइनेंस गाय, सो आई हैव टू cater to financial obligations and whatnot. But मैं ए लेवल्स कभी ना पढ़ा था. And I would have never taught it if it weren't for a few people who boosted my uh, who actually boosted my motivation to start teaching A levels, who gave me the jazba. बिकॉज मैंने सोचा यार ये लोग तो बच्चों को लूट रहे हैं, ये क्या है, एस ऑर्बिटल में ये होता है, वो होता है, देर जस्ट लिटरली जस्ट गिविंग यू फैक्ट्स. तो मतलब ठीक है, पेपर में आपका ग्रेड आ जाने, फैक्ट्स सुनो बस, हाँ एस में ये होता है, लेकिन क्यों होता है, कैसे होता है, कब होता है, व्हाट्स द थॉट प्रोसेस, व्हाट्स द स्टोरी बिहाइंड इट, व्हाट्स गोइंग ऑन, यू नो. दे जस्ट टेल यू अच्छा इसमें ये है, इसका ये होता है, बस ये याद करना होता है, इसका ये, इसका ये, इसका ये, इसका ये, तो बंदा पागल हो जाता है. बंदा यार ये लेवल केमिस्ट्री तो रट्टा है सारा. हालांकि ऐसी कोई बात नहीं, इट्स अ स्टोरी. जैसे मैंने ओ लेवल्स कहानी के तौर पे पढ़ाई थी ना, ए लेवल में पूरी कहानी है. याद कर लो. हाँ हाँ, साउंड्स लाइक माय टीचर. एक्साइटेड फॉर एवर. आई एम ऑल्सो एक्साइटेड गाइज. एसीसीए करनी है, कैम रखूं ये लेवल में, ना रखो प्रार्थना, रहने दो. सर मेरा स्कूल वाले फिजिक्स वाले सर की तरह बातें कर रहे हैं, डूड वांट्स अस टू बिकम कुछ और ही. तो अच्छी बात है ना, अच्छी बात है, लेकिन उतना भी नहीं करूंगा जितना आप लोगों को फिर एब्जॉर्ब भी ना हो सके. एब्जॉर्ब कराने का भी एक तरीका होता है कि बच्चा एब्जॉर्ब, आपको पता है, मतलब when I teach from the syllabus, I first of all find out, I first of all stand in front of the wall. और फिर मैं सोचता हूँ कि ये दीवार एक स्टूडेंट है. फिर मैं सोचता हूँ नहीं, स्टूडेंट ये भी सोच पा सकता है. फिर मैं एक और तरीके से दीवार को पढ़ाता हूँ. फिर मैं कहता हूँ नहीं यार, स्टूडेंट के सामने ये भी आ सकता है, तो चलो इसको यूं मोड़ करो, यूं मोड़ करो. आफ्टर 10-15 times of talking to the wall, I come up with one way of delivering something. Oh, I also teach my wall while preparing. That's actually the best way to prepare. सीए के लिए क्या सब्जेक्ट्स रखने चाहिए? ओ यार, मुझे देख के सीए ना करो भाई. ओके, लेट मी टेल यू समथिंग. If you guys are, want to pursue chartered accountancy just because you see me and oh Sir Suleiman बड़े अमीर हैं ये, I have other businesses that CA has helped me develop. तो इट्स नॉट लाइक मैं ठीक है हूँगा, अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह अल्लाह ने पैसे दिए हैं, जो भी है छाप रहा हूँ, सही है छाप रहा हूँ, बट आई हैव मल्टीपल अदर बिजनेसेस. एंड यस, सीए gave me the skill, so it's a service based sector. It's like just like lawyers, just like barristers. There are barristers who are earning multi-million rupees every month, and there are barristers who are earning करोड़ों रुपए a month, 5 करोड़ 6 करोड़. And then there are barristers who are earning 2 लाख रुपए या 1 लाख, or even 50,000 a month. It depends on your competence. To be honest, it's all up to your skill. It's all up to your competence and whatnot. uh sir, someone sent streak और लिखा कि, और नहीं, वो नहीं प्रार्थना. chill. When will the class end? The class has ended, Isa. I'm just chilling with them, I'm just chilling. I'll also stop the recording at this point and I'll just talk to you guys for a moment, and then we can call